Good morning. I'm Don Rose, and I'd like to welcome you all to the third open board meeting we've had, my first as chair. Before I do any introductions or start any formal part of the meeting, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting here today on and operate our transit services throughout traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. I would also like to start this meeting by saying a few words of introduction and welcome to three very senior people who have joined the organization since our last open board meeting. And with me on my right is Kevin Desmond, our new CEO. And Kevin will say a few words this morning, but he's been on the job, I think, for all of about 6 working days, so we'll go a little bit easy on him the first day. And I would also like to welcome and introduce to you in the audience Vivian King, if you don't mind just raising your hand. And Vivian joined us very recently as the head of the rail company. And on Vivian's left, Doug Lepard, who has again joined us just very recently as chief of the transit police. And throughout the morning, both Vivian and Doug will have reports and will give you a little bit more information about themselves and their background. Now, again, before we start any of the presentations, I would also like to introduce the directors, my fellow directors around the table, and I'll just go around the table, and the names are in front of them, but Larry Beasley, Jim Chu, Lorraine Cunningham, Murray Dinwoody, and Barry Forbes, and Kathy McClay, who, as most of you know, has been acting as our CEO until Kevin's arrival. Kathy is our CFO and will be providing most of the CEO report today, so Kathy. Gigi Chen Kuo, our corporate secretary, and back to the directors, Brenda Eaton, Tony Gugliotta, Mayor Gregor Robertson, and Marcella Sale. And Mayor Linda Hepner is traveling, I believe, but not here today. I thank you again for being here this morning. We appreciate the number of people who are here. As a matter of process, we will go until the open agenda is concluded this morning, or until 11 o'clock if it has not been concluded by then. At 11 o'clock, we will break and have delegations from the public. And if we have not concluded the business of the open board meeting by that time, we will resume it following the delegations. But our expectation is that we will be able to conclude our business by 11 o'clock. And so we'll get started with that now. And I think I've formally called the meeting to order, but if I need to do anything else, no, we're called to order. I would like, first of all, then to adopt the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Someone move and second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried? And we have minutes of December 9, 2015 meeting, and I would also like to have a motion to approve them. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried? Now, Kathy, having been acting CEO for a number of months, I'd ask you to take over the mic and give us the CEO's report.
And good morning, everyone. Before I get into my traditional report of covering the 6 priorities, I thought I'd take a moment just to give you a bit of an update on the federal budget that was just passed recently, and more importantly, how it impacts us here at TransLink. So this funding is a great first step to making the mayor's vision a reality. And we appreciate the federal government's commitment to transportation and transit in our region. And we're now much closer to moving forward on what we consider our critical infrastructure projects identified in the mayor's vision, which will directly benefit all the people in this region. So a couple of highlights is for much talked about was the funding portion. So in the budget, they've agreed to go up to 50% of the funding. That's a big change because it used to be up to 1/3. So that's really good news. They do say it is the down payment. So it's a phase one of a much bigger project and bigger ask that we ask for our region. So by using the ridership numbers that they've used the formula for calculating out the budget and how much would be allocated to TransLink, I think we fared out very well with a budget of a $370 million. And so these $370 million will go towards our shovel-ready projects. So we have many of the projects that are already identified, like getting our fleet expansions right away, as well as doing the expansion on many of our rail cars. So this is to absorb the capacity increases as well as upgrade the many of the stations that need to be done. So although it's fabulous news and we're really excited about it, there's still a lot of work to be done, because we need to continue to work with the federal government, to fund the full package, but as well as we need our funding partners. We still need to be working with the provincial government and the municipal governments to get the other piece of that puzzle. And we need all those pieces of the puzzle before we can move forward and start delivering the projects. So on balance, really excited about it, but still a lot of work ahead for us to do. And I know that staff and of course board are working fairly close with the Mayor's Council, so we appreciate that. So now I'm going to jump into our 6 priorities, if I may. We've been focusing the last year, 2015, primarily focusing on ensuring safety and security, modernizing BCRTC, improving customer service and experience, increasing ridership, building a performance measurement culture, and building public trust and confidence in TransLink. So I'm going to give a bit of an update on each one of those ones. 2015, what have we achieved, and what can we expect going forward? So as safety and security, as an enterprise, of course we take safety and security as a focus of what we do each and every day. In the last quarter, we continue to increase our efforts and ensure that we have a safe system, and more importantly, that our customers feel safe. And according to our most recent customer satisfaction survey, the overall feelings of customer safety on board SkyTrain is much higher than it was a year ago. We also welcome Chief Doug Lepard, who you've indicated, and look forward to his presentation later today and providing more details on transit. We're also committed, as many of you know, to our privacy. So that also falls under the safety part. And we've adopted a privacy policy, specifically right around Compass. We hear a lot of information on Compass. How are you going to track our data? We do have these policies in place, so I encourage anybody to look on our website. It's available for you. And we're also increasing our securities and technology to ensure that nobody penetrates into our system. We've improved our safety for our people. Hayden Atchison will talk about it at Coast Mountain Bus Company. So without stealing his thunder a little bit, the assaults are actually down for our operators, as well as there's doing some testing for putting safety barriers for our officers going forward. Modernizing BCRTC. We've made great progress on last year in implementing the 20 recommendations from the independent review. To date, we've have 8 completed on that, and 11 in progress, and just 1 in the development stages. So that completes our 20. Today we will also welcome Vivian King, President of BCRTC. This is her first board meeting, and she'll be providing a further update on what we're doing around the modernization of BC Rapid Transit. Next one is increasing ridership. For the first time after 2 years, as many of our board members know, 2013, 2014, we actually saw for the first time a decline in ridership. Well, we've turned the corner. It's back up again. So our ridership is actually up 1.8%. So if we look at our ridership today, it is slightly better than what it was in 2012. So if you take a look at that, I would say our ridership numbers, we serve more people and more people rode our transit than ever before. So this is a breaking road for us. Our ability to serve more customers, all within the same resources. Tim Savoy, our Vice President of Transportation Policy and Planning, will provide an update on the results of the transit network review recommendations. So this is the 85 routes that they were looking at. He will be providing, after doing all the consultation, which ones we're proposing to move forward on. Next one I want to talk about is improving customer service and experience. This year, we're continuing to deliver on rolling out the Compass card, as many of you know. Today, we have over 700,000 Compass cards on the system that is active. And when we originally did the business plan, we said we would be fully live if we had 500,000 cards. But right now, we've got 700. So we've seen a much better migration over. And for March, we had more than 143,000 monthly passes were loaded onto Compass. And today, we're recognizing about 1 million taps every single day on our Compass program and through our ridership. You want to equate that? That's like 12 taps every single second that we're in operations. So I would say we're live on Compass, and that sets us up well to get into the final gate closures, of which Lloyd will talk a little bit more about it. And that, of course, comes with some risk and opportunities as well, and I'm sure Lloyd's going to cover that off in his presentation. We've also seen, as I mentioned earlier, the growth in ridership, but we've also, which is really good, we've seen a decline in customer complaints. So even though we've provided the same amount of service hours, we've had more customers on our system, the amount of complaints have actually gone down 1.7% on our system. And satisfaction level continues to be stable year over year at about 7.5%. Building a performance measure culture. This continues to be identified and refined with our key performance indicators and to measure our achievements right across the organization. Christine Dacre, our VP of Finance and Corporate Services, will provide a lot more detail on that as we bring forward our 2015 audited financial statements and our year-end performance review. So she'll give all the highlights on the stats on that. But let me tell you that we ended 2015 in a strong financial position. We added $79 million of savings, of efficiencies, to our bottom line in 2015. And since 2012, that equates to $320 million that we've drawn out of savings in this organization. Now, our final priority, which is always top of my mind, which is building public trust and confidence in TransLink. 2015 was our year of listening. We completed the Downtown Business Service Review, the northeast sector of the area transit plan, and reported back on our progress of implementing priorities identified in the south of the Fraser and the North Shore area transit plans. As I mentioned earlier, we're consulting on the proposed transit changes as part of our transit network review. We continue to focus in 2016 and will invite the public to share their input on the number of new initiatives, including the Southwest Area Transit Plan and the Fare Policy Reviews. We also continue our work with the Mayor's Council, and I've been updating them on a regular basis to make sure that they're informed and that our relationship is improving. These are our 6 priorities, and we'll continue to look at ways to implement new initiatives and improve the network for customers and show the value for our taxpayers. In closing, I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to take the acting CEO role. It's been quite the experience. Now that I'm going back to my role as CFO, I welcome our new CEO, Kevin Desmond, for his first new board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for serving as the acting CEO over these months and doing a great job of keeping focused on the business of TransLink. Mr. Chair, thank you, and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here for the first board meeting, but more importantly, it's very exciting to finally be here on the job. As Chair Rose pointed out, this is number 6 day on the job, so I've been spending these last number of days getting as quickly immersed in the business of TransLink as possible, and that will take a little bit of time. Naturally, this is a large, complex organization with many different issues and operations to be attentive to. In the days ahead, I very much look forward to getting out in the system, to meeting our employees, further getting immersed in what TransLink's all about and what our issues are and the things that I in particular need to be attentive to drive the mission and the goals and objectives of TransLink. I also think this is a really exciting time to be here. I think it's very fortunate with TransLink coming off a year of basically record ridership rebounding, the Evergreen line nearing completion, and beginning the first extension of the rail network in, 6 or 7 years. Here, very exciting, you'll be hearing a little while the bus service restructures that are planned to support that very important public investment. Getting the final elements of the Compass program finished, and we can move on and really leverage the benefits of the fine Compass program, and of course, the announcement from the federal government the other day about the new funding opportunities for public transportation throughout the nation, and particularly here in our region. So it's a great time, I think, to be here. I look forward to listening today and participating in the board and moving forward. So thank you for that welcome.
Thanks very much, Kevin. And on behalf of the whole board, I'd like to again thank Kathy for a great job, and I hope it was a good experience, but thank you very much on behalf of all of us.
Thanks, Don, and thanks for all the support that I've received from our board members. I go back with new eyes into the CFO role. It's been a learning experience for me. Thanks.
Now, I don't want to stifle any conversation around the board. Kathy gave a comprehensive report, and if there are questions, we'll entertain them for discussion from the board. If not, Marcella.
Thank you, Don. Just a brief question in reference to the ridership numbers. You know, congratulations. It's our objective to increase that ridership number, especially since the decline after the increased fares a couple of years ago. To what specifically do you attribute the ridership increase, or is it just a combination of things that have happened over this past year, Kathy?
The one thing about ridership is we don't always know what motivates our customers, but I would say that we've seen an increase over the last quarter. So even coming out of the first 3 quarters, I would have said ridership was flat. So to gain that much, one could say, is it the Compass card? You know, you got a huge migration coming over. Is it because we have better accurate numbers, we're straddling on it? Or is the economy much better in Vancouver? All of those become factors of increasing ridership. So stay tuned. I would think at the end of Q1 and Q2, once we start getting our numbers on Q1 to see if that trend is continuing. Preliminary numbers look good, and it looks like we're continuing that trend.
If I may just follow up on that, Don, briefly. And thank you for that. I didn't realize it was just the last quarter specifically. So in that last quarter, we had no significant changes in bus routes, correct?
That's correct. So in the last quarter, they do their adjustment, but I would say the 1.8% represents the full year, Marcella. I just wanted to be clear. So our ridership year over year is increased 1.8.
Thank you.
Larry.
Do we have any sense of the relationship between ridership and capacity? In other words, how close are we to the capacity of the system as currently functioning?
So This question's probably more in Tim's voice wheelhouse, but I'll give you a high level. That's one of the reasons why we do the transit service network review, is really to sweat our assets and get the most we can get out. So by looking at what routes are underutilized and looking at routes that are overutilized, we're able to move the larger vehicles into the over, so it allows for more passengers to use our service.
If there aren't any more questions, and we can come back later in the meeting if there are questions.
Mr. Chairman? I'd just like to make a comment, if I may. We certainly have our role as directors, but I think it's also appropriate from time to time to recognize effort. And frankly, last year was a particularly challenging year for our organization. And I do think we ought to acknowledge the work of both our management and our staff under what could be characterized as extremely trying circumstances in 2015. The fact of the matter is that we saw a lot of positives, despite the fact that it was a very challenging year, and I do think we should publicly recognize the efforts of both our management and our staff and thank them for really an outstanding effort in trying circumstances.
Thank you. I think that would be shared by all of us. Okay, now, Hayden, you've been waiting, and we'll get on to the Coast Mountain Bus Company report. Hayden Atchison. Why don't you come and sit here, Hayden?
This one works over here.
Sure, okay.
There, it's on.
Good.
The red light's coming on.
Press the button.
All right, there we are. Technical function. And off the back. I have such a soft and gentle voice, right? So good morning from the bus company. You have our written report in front of you, and I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to touch on a couple of areas to give you some highlights and also some challenges ahead for us in a very brief way. I'm going to speak to the safety and security. I'm going to speak to customer service and experience. Safety and security, a very important core priority for us and a core value at the bus company, as it is throughout TransLink. We're never complacent about safety. We never accept last year's results as we've finally made it. We have a culture of continuous improvement. We work very hard at that, so I'm just going to share some of our achievements in 2015 that actually, as the leader of the company, I'm very proud of. We achieved a 20% reduction in the number of WorkSafe BC lost time claims in 2015. We had 278 claims, excuse me, versus 346 in 2014. Also, those claims, we reduced the number of days per claim by 29%, significant reduction. And we did that through a real focus on our management team, a real focus on every single claim that came in. We're very pleased with that result. As Kathy mentioned, there was a 7.5% reduction in assaults against CNBC staff in 2015, going down to 110 from 119 in 2014. We continue to investigate the safety benefits of operator protection barriers on our buses. We're working very closely with WorkSafe and BC Transit. And together with BC Transit, we're doing a pilot program testing 4 barriers. We have 4 out there today in our system in Burnaby, Surrey, Port Coquitlam, and the Vancouver Transit Center. And we're going to try a different manufacturer and add the 5th one in the next couple of months. Safety management system, for those of you in the transportation business, federally regulated, they all have safety management systems at the bus company. It's not something that has been really a standard out there, but something that I'm bringing into our company. We want to have a full SMS system in place by 2018. We've started in maintenance to have it in place in 2016. We're well on our way. It's going well. We've just done a global safety risk assessment and safety and training matrix. That's a big long word that really is just a gap analysis to see where we are in safety And we're monitoring, and we're going to have a system in place that I think we'll be very proud of in a couple of years. We successfully passed in 2015 the WorkSafe BC Certificate of Recognition Audit, and it results in significant annual rebates. Once again, as we did last year, we anticipate a rebate of up to $1 million. So very pleased with that. As far as resiliency and major disasters, we trained 120 staff members in facility rapid damage assessment and recovery of business. That was an initiative we put in place, and we completed that. Customer service and experience. Just talk a couple of highlights, and then I'll mention some challenges. Many of you were on the board last year. Recall our transit security bike patrol that we initiated in the spring and summer last year in the downtown core. Very successful, a good presence for our customers, for our employees' safety. A great response from customers, so we're going to launch that program again this spring, probably in May, and we'll run it through to the end of September. Also, we ran a pilot program last year of extending the customer information, the call center hours. That went well. We did a lot of monitoring on what the call volumes were, and we tweaked it. And so we're making a permanent change now to 5:30 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. Monday to Friday, and 6:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Our customer information team is busy and is well known on social media for their exceptional service online and on the phone. Our Twitter account now has over 95,000 followers and has tweeted over 250,000 times since it started. So it's a great success. And if you've gone through the call center, you know they're very proud of that, and it's a very active table, as you can see. On our IVR system, our interactive voice system to call in, if as a customer you call into our call center. In fall of 2015, we added an additional 24 lines for our interactive response, which brings us to a total of 69 available lines. We also added option 7, which allows us to add voice recordings, so if we have a major disruption or information we want to put out to our customers, instead of them waiting to speak to an agent, if they press 7, they'll get a recorded message. And I'm very pleased that we're almost there on the callback feature. So those of us that call into call centers and it tells you have a 9-minute wait, but you can press the button and we'll call you back. That should be in place within the next 2 or 3 months. We appreciate the help that we've received from BTS on that, and hopefully it'll be operational soon. Challenges for the bus company for the next quarter. Construction. This is the time of year, spring and summer, always lots of construction out there. This year, 30% higher than we've ever had in the past. 30% increase in construction puts a lot of strain on our routes, on our rescheduling, our ability to be on time, on performance. Customers always concerned about changes. And consider we have 15 long-term construction projects underway, including the Patilla Bridge, resurfacing the Burrard Street Bridge, and numerous construction at downtown. The latest update as of yesterday is 75 routes that will be affected by detours or congestion. We have a total of 193 bus routes. We have 75 routes that are impacted. And even if there's construction on a road that we don't have a route 2 or 3 blocks down, the fact that the traffic will come onto our route causes us problems. So even though there's not construction on that particular route, it's a challenge for us. Burrard Street construction started this past weekend. It resulted in significant delays for us on the number 2 and the number 22. We are at this time still working on some reroutes. There's been a lot of congestion on that route, and so it's a real challenge for us going forward. Overcrowding or pass-ups, as I briefed the board a couple of years ago, numbers have actually increased. Our data today from our operators shows that we pass up about 1,100 times each weekday. It's a big number, but it represents about 1/10 of 1%. But it is a big number. We get about 1,000 complaints a year from customers on that. The top 5 pass-up routes in 2015 were the 49, the 41, which is Joyce's Crown UBC, C23, which is Yaletown and Davie Main Street, 25 Brentwood UBC, 99 of course. And so what do we do about it? We respond to every complaint. We do, as Kathy mentioned, service optimization. we only have so much capacity out there. Most of the pass-ups, of course, are at rush hour when we're using the max amount of our fleets. We don't have a lot to do. We can put 40-foot buses on and put 60 buses, take 60-foot buses off and replace them. We can put some shuttles on. There's only so much that we can do, but we do our very best at it, and I give our staff a lot of compliments for that. They tell me 1,100 is an okay number. It seems like a big number to me, but they wanted me to make sure that if I raise this with you, that say it was 1/10 of 1% of our routes. That's my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Hayden. I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions or comments. Jim?
Hayden, I looked at your KPIs. I don't know if you have them handy in front of you, but in terms of a change in handyDart customer denials between 2014 and 2015, it looked like a very large change.
It's a large number.
Can you explain that, or?
Yes, we used two things. There was a program in 2014 where we put taxis in. We received $1 million to run a pilot program on using taxis to offload. We've added, I think, over 30,000 extra trips by being able to do that to reduce the denials. Plus, working with our contractor MVP on a real focus on managing denials and try to reduce them down to the minimum we can.
Lorraine first and then Barry.
Hayden, in your report, you, under your transit security, you speak about increasing face-to-face interaction with customers, up to 4,500 more customers. What does that look like? What is the customer experiencing there?
We're having them ride the buses more than they did, just visible presence on the buses, visible presence at the loops and exchanges. In the past, they would ride in transit security vehicles, 2 at a time. They would go to troubled areas. They would be monitored. We've taken them out of the cars. We put them on the buses. We put them visible at the loops and exchanges. And we got good feedback for that. That came out of our APTA peer review that was done on transit security, and they suggested to us that the customers needed to see more visible presence of security and personnel out there. So that was in response to that.
Great, thank you.
Barry.
Hayden, although I appreciate that the overcrowding passovers is a relatively small percentage of the total trips per se, it will always get attention. So are there, if you could wave the magic wand, are there things that you could do that could potentially impact that positively that are within your control, that is within the control of the company?
So if we take the 99, probably out of our control. So you have Broadway and Commercial. You have the SkyTrain station. SkyTrain comes in, offloads 400 customers. An Arctic bus can only hold 100. You have that every 4 or 5 minutes, you get that. So there's not a lot we can do with that. We've asked the question, can we go to 2-minute service, 1-minute service on the Arctics, and simply with bunching up, it doesn't work. On the routes that do not have that much volume, putting more buses in service would help, more beelines would help, but we do the service. I believe, I'm quite confident to say to you, with the fleet that we have, and the service optimization processes that we have in place, I believe we're able to maximize the best that we can do. So the other alternative is more buses to serve those routes.
Tony.
Aidan, the report mentions that spill frequencies have been reduced. Maintenance engineering is looking at ways of maybe dealing with that. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit in terms of...
So we put spill kits on the buses. That's one thing that we did, a very low cost solution actually. So we have spill kits at the back of each bus, and if there's a spill, the operator can come and secure that site very, very quickly. So that's helped. We look for commonality in leaks, so we'll find a particular year of a bus manufacturer or that particular run, there may be a fault on a particular hose. So we're proactive now and we replace those hoses even though they haven't time expired. So we try to almost micromanage it.
Marcella.
With respect to the upcoming, the existing construction season and the impact on the buses, I got to be one of those who had to get off the bus at one end of Lionsgate Bridge and walk all the way downtown, but at least I wasn't in a car sitting on the bridge for 3 hours. But are there any things that is possible for TransLink to do with, I don't know with whom, to better predict when there are,
So we ask-
construction I get, but a lot of times it's just the huge congestion for some reason, like an accident, which stops everything for hours and hours and hours. Is there more that can be done on that front?
No, accidents and motor vehicle accidents are difficult. I mean, we have a TCOM center, we've gone through the TCOM center. They're on it. They put a lot of resources onto it. We have the GPS mapping. We know where the congestion areas are. So I think we do a pretty good job of trying to manage that as best as we can. There's not a lot of options when there's a motor vehicle accident because all the traffic diverts to the other routes. On construction, we talk to the cities. We really would like to have 6 months notice. It's very difficult to do it under 6 months. If we have 6 months notice, we can do the reroutes. We can really minimize the impact. When we get 2 months notice, 3 months notice, Broad Street, we've got short notice on that one. It's very difficult for us.
One more question, Gregory.
Yeah, thanks for the report, Hayden. A question on the bus punctuality, which it looks like in terms of regularity and departures, we're on target year to year, but about a 10% drop below our target in 2015 on punctuality. What's the rational reason for that?
There's probably a number of reasons for it. That's why we KPI it. I can't give you specifics. Probably construction has something to do with it through the year, but that's why we KPI it, because we try to drill down and find out exactly where it is. One of our problems with punctuality is actually our operators leaving their timing points early, not late. And so we have a real focus on that. So you would think it's just everything's being late, but in fact, if there's not a lot of traffic, we have timing points. Operators will tend to leave early. So we've put a focus on this year. We meet with each of our operators once a year, and we talk to them about early timing points. We've just built a new dashboard that allows us to sort of micromanage it a little bit better. So punctuality is both.
Thanks very much, Hayden. You can leave your mic on.
Okay.
So that it doesn't break down. Thanks. Vivian? Yeah. As I mentioned, Vivian King is the new CEO of the BC Rapid Transit Company. So welcome again, and look forward to hearing from you.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here this morning and to meet the board in person, so thank you very much for having me. I have to say I'm extremely excited about working with TransLink to take BCRTC to the next level of service in customer service as well as service delivery. I'm going to take this opportunity to look forward and help the board understand the focus that I will be taking in the first 90 days of any job. The CEO usually gets 90 days to get their head around the business, look at what is happening, and then be able to advise the plan going forward. So my experience with both light rail and heavy rail service delivery, asset management improvement programs, the commissioning of new fleet and new lines, I think will be a great advantage in helping TransLink and BCRTC achieve its goals for this region. I was fortunate to arrive in Vancouver in February, early February actually, and I was able to ride the system as a customer would ride the system. I used the SkyTrain, I used ferries and buses to get around. And so that insight, I think, will be something that will really help me understand, working with my team and with TransLink, to decide what the priorities should be for our customers of the rail division. In my first 90 days, I intend to work very closely with TransLink and my management team on a number of key areas so that we can develop a very robust plan in providing the integrated service that the rail division do with TransLink. There are 4 key areas that I'm concentrating on in that period to understand and to be able to look at where we should put our energies, the focus of the team, and of course the scarce dollars that may be available to us in this period coming up. The first one is the safety management system, and I know that you just heard Hayden talk about how important that is to any transit area. With my experience, I find that the SMS tells you how prepared the organisation is to run each day, and that our objective to keep staff and customers safe will always be at the forefront of our minds. By reviewing the BCRTC's SMS, I can assure myself, our customers, and TransLink that we have a robust and safe system. The second area of focus will be in the area of state of good repair. We need to operate this rail system on a basis of state of good repair and not an approach of run to fail. We will need a strong maintenance strategy, plans and processes which are focused and executed appropriately. By modernising the asset management system as one of the key objectives of TransLink, we will be able to support the maintenance area in delivering a planned regime of inspections and maintenance, along with corrective action repairs, while ensuring that we provide that safe and reliable service. The third area that I will be looking at with my team is to ensure that the customer service area is motivated and we have passionate employees. By engaging the hearts and minds of employees to create an environment focused on customer service by all staff and not just frontline workers is going to be a key focus of my management team. We need to align a number of things to ensure that our employees are in the right place at the right time with the necessary tools, training and attitude to get this customer service level to where we want it to be. We will, through this process, create a culture where a strong customer ethos is second to none and is part of our makeup. The final area, and certainly not the last, but the final, is the performance management. The old management saying of if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. A cliche, but so very true. So what I'm doing at the moment, and have spent probably 80% of my 3 weeks on the job, has been reviewing, identifying and establishing what type of framework we need to nurture a culture of measuring and reporting on what we do. We're looking at what we currently measure, identifying gaps and hopefully putting forward a quick plan to implement the improvements in this area. By utilising the data that's available to us, we will collect it, turn it into information and use it to enhance our business. These are the areas that I will be focusing on with my team, with TransLink, and putting forward a plan in 90 days. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share that with you. And I have time for questions, I believe.
Thanks, Vivian. Where do we start? Larry.
Thank you for the report and appreciate your attention, particularly to customer service. Do you have an organized outreach now to customers? Do you have a standing organization of customers that are advising your management organization on what the experience of customers is, and what is that about? How does that look? What does that look like?
Currently, I believe that is done with the assistance of TransLink. So they have an area that they look at the customer experience. They work with the management team of BCRTC in working through that. There are some goals that I have spoken to Kevin about in just sharing some ideas about how we will have a stronger outreach program from the rail division, which I'm hoping will be linked very closely with the Hayden and with Doug, as you're going to meet soon, because to me it's not just BCRTC that provide customer service, it will be the whole of the TransLink family. And so we will be out, including myself, my management team, along with my colleagues in the other businesses, to meet our customers, talk to them about what their experiences are, and blend that with what the TransLink division accountable for customer experiences has, and that information, and be able to look forward in a program that highlights that process of outreach. So I'd like to reserve the actual actions until I've had a chance to talk to my colleagues about blending that in with what we do.
Could I pose the question to Kathy? At the level of TransLink, on behalf of all the operating companies, do we have an organized committee or advisory group of customers that's feeding us moment to moment? I know we have very good outreach from time to time. Do we have more than that in terms of an ongoing conversation?
We do an ongoing for our customer survey satisfaction. So we do an independent, we have Ipso read, survey all of our customers on an ongoing basis. We tabulate all the data, we're looking for the trends, and then we have an overarching conversation. What are we seeing? How do we manage these pieces? Are we there yet? It's an area of opportunity. We certainly need to refine it. Having Vivian join our team as well as having Doug and Hayden, there's an opportunity to really refine it and move it to the next level.
Gregor.
And Kevin, sorry.
Welcome, Vivian. Great to have you here. Just wanted to raise the issue of late night transit service out of downtown and being able to run the trains out of downtown till later hours for all the people that work in the downtown, particularly on weekend nights, not only work, but people that are in the entertainment districts and have considerable challenges getting back to their home turf. We've heard historically anyway that there are challenges extending the SkyTrain hours because of the routine maintenance that happens every night. Just wanted to flag the hopes. We've had some discussion around the board table in recent months, but the hopes that there is a possibility of being able to achieve both the customer service goals of providing more service and enabling people to get home more quickly and safely on weekend nights, but also ensuring that the state of good repair and the maintenance that will need to happen obviously still takes place. And I'm hoping you bring some new magic to the table on this, but just wanted to flag it. Obviously, there are resource issues that may be part of this as well, but I think the question in my mind is are we able to resolve the customer service versus operations and maintenance challenges that have been at the core of this?
It's a worldwide problem where we try to balance, getting into the system and making sure that it is safe and reliable to provide that level of customer service. It is certainly something that TransLink are exploring with the service availability and how we do that from an integrated perspective. Often there are some challenges and trade-offs, and I'm speaking very freely here that, if sometimes you need to look at another mode of transport to keep that movement happening while you repair or you maintain another system. There are ways of doing that, but it does mean that people need to be tolerant of interchange occasionally while you do that. I haven't had the opportunity to have those in-depth discussions with the relevant people at TransLink at this stage. It certainly will be on our agenda to make sure that we're getting in and that we're maintaining the state of good repair. And I know that, I'm sort of just getting my head around the modernisation plans that we have for BCRTC. I like to call it the rail division, if that's all right. It's just less of a mouthful, and that's actually what we do. We deliver rail for TransLink. So we'll be looking very closely at that. We'll be balancing it and getting the best value for money, customer service and maintenance activities that we can.
Okay, Marcella.
It'll probably be a very quick one. Welcome
Thank you.
as well, Vivian. My question is around the big milestone of our integration with Evergreen. Is that going to be addressed by someone else, Dawn, or can I ask Vivian to talk a bit about that? I'm just not sure where it is on the agenda. It might be in the capital.
Well, if Vivian's comfortable commenting, that's fine, but I think Kathy might be, if you're okay with it, Vivian.
I'm happy to talk about where we're at to from the rail division, and then I'm sure that Kathy would be able to add anything else.
Fantastic.
I think from a perspective, integration of the extension is a critical one, and I've taken personal interest in that. I come with experience of commissioning a number of lines, both greenfield and integrated. So my first approach has been looking at our readiness, and we're working very closely on that, and I'm pleased to say that that readiness program is on my desk and that's being reviewed as we speak. We've done, from an operational perspective, in providing the services, we have the timetable all locked in and worked through with TransLink, and that's working fine, and we're confident that that will set in. And from a perspective of myself, I've done a walkthrough and I've had a look at some of the builds. So from my perspective, we're working very well with the company that's building that, and we're ready to start to implement our program. So hopefully that answers your question.
Murray.
Thanks, Don, and welcome, Vivian. I
Thank you.
just noticed in the stats that you provided regarding cost per passenger and vehicle kilometer that both of them were slightly higher than were expected for the year.
Yes.
And there was some explanation provided about things that were going on in 2015 that may have caused that. Are you expecting 2016 to in fact be flat, given that they were higher in 2015? Is that a reasonable expectation?
Well, given my 16 days on the job, I am looking into the metrics that we use for measurement. I haven't got my head around the whole history of why those figures are sitting where they are. They certainly are on my radar, and we will be looking forward. So what I would be aiming for, if it was possible, was either to be flat or save. However, I need to understand the elements that have affected that figure before I could actually say to you, yes, I expect it to be flat or lower.
Right. The reason I ask it is that I'm assuming that a lot of the train costs are fixed, and so with increased ridership, I would have expected the cost per passenger to be slightly lower.
Yes.
Because we don't change sort of the running of the trains that much.
It will depend on sometimes the maintenance that we'll be doing and whether we have the utilisation changing. So we might still be able to get people out moving because of the configuration of the trains. But again, I'm not sure how we've been doing that. We have swapped out some smaller trains for longer trains, but to what level, whether it would affect that figure or not, I would be hesitant to say because I don't have the facts in front of me.
Right, okay.
But I'm
Well,
certainly happy to take that on notice.
I look forward to the ongoing reports in that regard.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay, Kathy?
And Murray, if I might add, yeah, we did see the costs go up even though ridership went up. And you're right, you would assume that would drive it down. But we've spent a lot of money at the rail division as we're talking about, and it aligns with one of our priorities. A lot of it came out of the independent review, so we've got 8 pieces completed. We've added a lot more SkyTrain attendants to add for that customer experience. We've also have a lot of delayed in maintenance, so we're doing a lot of catch up on that, not only in hiring, but in getting our maintenance costs up and ready. So these are new costs. These costs will actually stay year over year now. But this was the cost of doing business and working with a system that's now in excess of 30 years old.
Thank you. I think we're going to
Thank you.
move on now, Vivian. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you very
welcome
much.
Again. And Chief Lepard. Welcome again.
Good morning. So for those of you I don't know, my name is Doug Lepard. Like Vivian, I've been here 3 weeks. Before that, I served 35 years with the Vancouver Police Department and had the pleasure of working with and for then Chief Constable Jim Chu on the executive with him for the last 12 years of my career. So I'm very pleased to be part of the TransLink family now and the Chief Officer of the Transit Police. It is a force that I know something about because I served several terms on the Transit Police Board, so I had some familiarity with the agency. I'm a born and raised Metro Vancouver person, so I know the region very well. I've lived here my whole life and very pleased to be part of an organization that is focused on performance metrics and also on customer service, which is completely aligned with some of the things that I think have been and achieved in the transit police and that we can continue to improve on and build on synergies with the transit police and with the other companies in TransLink. So just to talk a little bit about the transit police, like Vivian, I'm spending a lot of time just listening to people. My first 30 days, I've got ideas about where we're going to take the transit police force, but I think it's really important to listen both internally and externally before I firm up those ideas and have those discussions with my police board. But again, very much focused on the transit experience in terms of how the transit police can be part of a great experience and customer focused. Police officers in the transit police receive the exact same training as all municipal police officers in British Columbia. They go through the Justice Institute of British Columbia. Their authorities are exactly the same as police officers throughout BC, but of course we're focused on the transit system. You'd be surprised about the level of commonality in terms of policing this moving city that rides the trains every day in terms of the variety of incidents that occur. People might be surprised to know that although it's only one part of our job, like for every police agency, that we arrest almost 1,200 people a year for a wide variety of offenses in our efforts to keep the riding public safe. Now, utopia for us is that there'd be no crimes and we would arrest nobody. We're not likely to achieve that, but it's certainly our goal, and the best measure would be the absence of crime, not how many people that we're arresting. Just move on to the next slide there. So in 2016, we have some focuses among many duties that we have, but I'll just talk very briefly about each of them. You know, because there's been a fair amount of publicity around it, sexual offending on the train. They're sexual assaults. They're generally at the, although all serious, at the lower end of the scale in terms of a sexual offense, but sometimes they are more serious, particularly when there's been passengers that have been followed off the trains, and we know that there have been a series of incidents in Burnaby and Vancouver, and so we're very much involved in those investigations, both individually and also, for example, we have an investigator that is integrated with the Vancouver Police Department right now working on a series of those offenses. So that's something that we focus a lot of time and energy on as predators that ride the transit system. Mental illness, like every police force, is a big part of what we do, dealing with people that have mental health issues, and probably about 10% of the incidents that we deal with involve a person with a significant mental health issue. And in fact, we apprehend under the Mental Health Act about 267 people a year. Now, those are people with a serious mental illness who are a danger to themselves or others. So not someone that's just has mental health issues. These are someone that has gross symptoms. And unfortunately, we have, because the trains lend themselves to that, we have quite a few people that are displaying suicidal behavior. So I'm very pleased to report that that is something that we really focus on, and more than 100 times a year we intervene with people who are displaying suicidal behavior. And suicides, fortunately, are still relatively rare, but they do happen, and they're hugely traumatic for the riding public and for everybody that responds to deal with them. And so we're very focused on really to driving those to zero. In terms of system resiliency, I guess we saw most recently the importance of that with the attacks on the system in Brussels, and we responded to that, as we have a number of times when there have been terrorist attacks, by increasing our level of presence, reassure the riding public, being focused very much on abnormal behavior. We have an explosive sniffing dog team working on each shift. We actually brought 2 out for those 3 days. So just a very high level of presence so that we're in a position to be able to deal with anything that emerges. And fortunately, as most often happens, there wasn't, but that is an important part of working with TransLink to ensure system resiliency. And then the last thing I'll talk about is workplace violence. We know it's been quite public, the issue of assaults on transit operators. That's something we take very seriously in terms of prevention, doing education, teaching diffusing skills, but also following up vigorously on those that would assault operators. And I'm proud that before my time, the transit police was actually successful in advocating for a change to the criminal code to make it an aggravating circumstance for the purposes of sentencing when someone assaults an operator. So I'll just talk about this a little bit. Like most police agencies, there is geographic responsibility, and that's what the transit police is moving to as well. So in 2015, we moved to 6 hubs and geographical responsibility areas, and the idea is that the officers work exclusively in that area, and they're more focused on engaging with the public and businesses and other service providers, the police agencies in the jurisdiction, get to know them, and are better able to deliver a really good service. The next stage of that we're working on right now is to implement community service officers. So those are police officers that will be responsible for each of those 6 hubs. We're going to be starting with 2, one at Commercial and Broadway and one in Surrey. And so their job will be to coordinate the activities of the police in those service areas. So I'll just show this slide briefly to just talk about deployment, that we're quite efficiently deployed. If you look at the lines, those are actually our calls for service and crimes, and you can see that we're not equally deployed across the day and night, that we have more officers on at night, and we also have an overlap period. So our call load and the workload matches quite closely to our deployment. And just a breakdown, I mentioned earlier on about arrests. This is the breakdown, is about 1/3 of the people that we arrest are actually wanted on warrants from any jurisdiction in Canada that's put a warrant on the system, and that could be from the most minor criminal offenses to the most serious criminal offenses. So that, like everyone else, this is a great, efficient system, and criminals ride the trains as well. They often don't pay their fare. That's why we've run into them, and we'll find out that they're wanted on a warrant. But 2/3 of the arrests we make are for new offenses, and those range from assaults, threatening, sexual assault, weapons offenses, domestic disputes, everything that you can think of really does happen on the transit system. Not to say that it's not a safe system, because it's a very safe system, and we're part of keeping it that way. And so I'll just talk about, everybody knows now that we have a texting system, and so this allows people that don't feel comfortable actually phoning 911 and getting on the phone to actually text a problem that's going on. And so we're able to quickly respond, and the person doesn't have to be outed as the reportee. I mentioned about sexual assaults being a focus. We had one on the weekend, and I can tell you that it was reported very quickly to an attendant who was able to notify us, and we were waiting upstream for that offender as he got off the train with an attendant saying, "That's the person that the witness reported me to." Our police officers took him, interviewed him, obtained a confession, charged him with sexual assault, and so that's a very important service. About 5% of our overall calls started with a text, and about 72% of the texts we receive are actually converted to a police file. So many significant incidents. And then just the last slide, I always like to end on a feel-good note. This is our newest dog, Kona. So we actually have 4 bomb teams now, and that allows us to deploy 1 on every shift. So days and nights, 7 days a week, we have an explosives team on the system, and they're the ones that are going to be dealing with suspicious packages or whatever. And it's just part of the system resilience. So I'll stop there and take any questions that you have.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Welcome.
Thank
3
you.
weeks. With the gates closing in a week or so, I'm just wondering what impact you see or anticipate will happen in regards to some of your safety issues, customer service experience.
Well, I hope that the gate closures improve revenue for TransLink. I think that fair enforcement and encouragement will still be an important part of the transit police job, but even now I know that those are the scenes we see on the news, is police officers doing fair enforcement, but it's a fairly small part of what they do. Really what they're doing is dealing with the sort of issues that any police agency is dealing with. So if you think of traffic enforcement in a municipal police agency, that's kind of the equivalent in the transit police. So it's often a vehicle for us to enter into an investigation, because surprisingly, criminals often feel like they shouldn't have to pay their fare. But those are the people that also will backdoor through the gates and jump the gates and find other ways to get onto the system without paying. So I think that we will still be dealing with mostly the same issues that we're dealing now, but time will tell how much of an influence that has and whether that allows us to spend more time focusing on public safety issues that we did not have the capacity to deal with.
Thank you very much, Doug, and welcome.
Thank you.
I think we're going to, oh, sorry, Murray, don't go away quick.
Sorry. Yeah, welcome, Doug. Maybe sort of a little bit of a minor point, but I was kind of surprised that there would be 4, I guess, explosive dog teams on the force the size that it is. And I'm wondering, are they deployed full-time, or is it proactive, or how often is it reactive? I'm wondering whether there may be an opportunity to use other forces, explosive dog teams, to assist us, given the scale of our operation and, you know, the need to spread the resources across many functions.
Yep, no, good question. So a couple of things. First of all, that capacity in the other jurisdictional police doesn't exist. We're more likely to be called by them than the other way around. For example, in Vancouver, our dogs are not explosives trained. They're apprehension dogs, not explosive dogs. Several of them are cross-trained for drug detection, but not explosives. So it actually on a rail system, it's a pretty important capacity to have. But I understand why you're asking your question in terms of the size of the organization and so on. I'll just say those officers weren't an addition to the authorized strength of the transit police. Those were officers that are already patrol officers that are out there, and they simply have that additional training and duty is that they're working with a dog partner rather than a police partner. But they're part of the patrol force that was out there anyway. And so think of it like an officer who's also trained to carry a taser, or an officer who is trained to be a negotiator. It's an extra tool that they have, but it does not detract from the capacity of the transit police. It increased the capacity of the transit police.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the Audit Committee report. And just to save a little bit of time, Christine, do you want to come up now? And Barry, if you wouldn't mind, there's a number of items here, including your report, if you wouldn't mind just sort of taking over for the next part of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item on the Audit Committee is a consent agenda item, so would move that it be adopted, approved as provided or circularized. So you need to do that. I can't do that.
I don't think there's any approval
on the consent
on that item. I don't think.
No.
Am I? Was there any? Yeah, that's.
Oh, it's just information. Okay.
Barry.
Not included. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So we'll move to the report, Mr. Chairman, and from the Audit Committee. Now, a number of items that were dealt with by the Audit Committee are in fact on the agenda as separate items because they require resolutions. So those will follow my report. The Audit Committee met a week or so ago and dealt with a number of issues. We dealt with, for example, the report from the external auditors on the state of the organization, and I'll just make a brief comment about that. We dealt with the audited statements, which are to come. Chris is here for that. We reviewed the internal audit program. Pleased to report the internal auditor completed all of the internal audits required for 2015 and is well underway with the 2016 plan. We received from our folks in IT for the plan for 2016. Now, the board had previously approved the IT budget and forecast going forward. What we received from the IT group is their list of the 31 top priorities, half of which are continuing from the prior year, the other of which are new, and are focused on most critical areas within the organization. So a good, well thought out plan from the IT group. The auditor's report was to the organization was thorough and complete, and I can advise the board that there were no material issues arising out of the auditor's report. Mr. Chairman, as I said, there's a number of items on here that are separate, so I'll just conclude by referring to two items in particular. The committee reviewed its terms of reference and is not making any recommendations to change the terms of reference that are satisfied that they're appropriate for the organization. And finally, I can advise, although I was not the chair of the audit committee, I can't say this, that the audit committee has fulfilled all of its responsibilities that are delegated by the board for fiscal 2015 and up to today. And Mr. Chairman, all of those responsibilities were fulfilled, and we are in compliance with the requirements of the With that, I can turn, if you will, Mr. Chairman, to the financial update presentation. And as you indicated, Christine is already here, and she's going to walk through a number of items. So if that's appropriate, Christine, you're on.
Thanks, Barry. First, I'd like to highlight some of the items in the 2015 year-end financial performance report that is included in your board packages. TransLink finished the year with a $200,000 funded surplus, which was $18.2 million better than budget. Funded revenue was higher by $11.4 million, and funded expenses were lower by $6.8 million. Now, before I go into more specifics about the numbers, some performance highlights compared to 2014 include the following. We delivered 36,000 more trips to Access Transit service customers. The number of trips denied went down by 90%. Revenue passenger ridership grew by 1.8%, whereas population in our region grew by 1.3%. There was a decrease in the number of complaints received both in regular scheduled transit service and Access Transit service. Crossings on the Golden Ears Bridge grew by 8.6%. And employee lost time frequency per 200,000 hours worked went down 20%. Our CNBC operator assaults per million service hours went down 8%. And as Kathy mentioned, TransLink continues to focus on efficiencies in 2015, and a total of $79 million in cost-saving efficiencies, increasing revenue efficiencies, and one-time savings were achieved. This brings the total savings since 2012 to $320 million. This chart shows the funded revenue. It's not as big as I was hoping. Sorry about that. It shows the funded revenue in 2015. I was trying to get the impact there. Out of the total $1.37 billion in revenue, 56.5 comes from taxation, which is fuel tax, property tax, parking rights tax, and hydro levy. 37.4% comes from transit. 3.5% comes from tolls on the Golden Ears Bridge, and the remaining 2.6% comes mainly from government transfers for the Canada Line Operating Fund and miscellaneous income, such as adjacent integrated development. This next chart shows how we spend the funds. 66.7% went to transit services. 19.2% went to interest and debt service costs. 5.7% went to corporate operations. 3% to roads and bridges. 2.4% to transit police. And 2.3% to a number of one-time costs that occurred in the year. This chart shows the comparison to budget for consolidated revenues in more detail. Taxation revenues were $16 million higher than budget. Fuel tax revenue makes up $13 million of this, and parking rights tax makes up $3 million. Lower fuel prices is the driving factor for both of these. With lower fuel prices, people tend to drive more, which increases our fuel tax collected, and similarly drives up the parking tax received. Transit revenue is lower than budget by just under $8 million. This is due to an increase in the utilization of the discounted products along with lower than budgeted ridership. We had budgeted ridership to grow 2.2%, whereas, as I mentioned already, our actual ridership growth was 1.8%. Government transfers are much higher than budget due to the change in accounting treatment for the timing of when funds are recorded into revenue. Golden Ears Bridge tolls are higher by just under $5 million, as vehicle crossings were higher than expected. Interest income is higher due to higher rates and balances for sinking funds. And our miscellaneous income is higher by $2.6 million due to the increased revenue from our adjacent integrated development projects, as well as higher third-party recoveries received in the bus division. Disposal of assets were lower due to timing of planned disposals. Our funded expenditures were $6.8 million lower than budget. The bus division came in $10 million favorable, and this was largely due to lower fuel costs of $7.5 million and lower wages, salaries, and benefits of $2.2 million from staff vacancies and managing staffing levels. Corporate operations came in $4 million higher due to a $1.8 million liability for site remediation, which is a required change in the accounting standard for contaminated sites. Claims paid out by TransLink's Transportation Property Casualty Company, higher fees related to the adjacent integrated development of $1 million, which are recoverable from developers, which I mentioned in the revenue side. The rail division was $1.7 million higher than budget. This is due to increased staffing in response to the recommendations from the Independent SkyTrain Review, additional rail and equipment maintenance costs, and higher costs related to maintaining the ticket vending machines and ticket validators, which have now been replaced. Roads and bridges were $16.7 million favorable, mainly due to the timing of capital contributions to the municipalities. The municipalities control the timing of this spending. There was also lower spending on feasibility studies due to the timing of the activity. Transit police came in on budget. Amortization was favorable due to the timing of project completions, and corporate one-time costs were $2.4 million higher than budget, and this is due to the write-off of non-capitalizable seismic upgrade design costs related to the Patella Bridge and increased costs from the rapid transit studies. Do you want me to take questions on this one before I go to the audited?
Before we go to the audited. Any questions for Chris or Kathy for that matter, if we want to ask Kathy? Jim? Where would fare evasion numbers appear? I know there's two categories of that. What is fare evasion and what we're enforcing in terms of giving up tickets and collecting fine revenue. So is that something that's come up before that people want included in these financial numbers?
So the fare evasion from the tickets that we collect, that would be in the transit revenue.
And then what about the overall trends on fare evasion? And is it something that's being watched,
Yeah.
especially with the fare gates going in and better integration with transit security and transit police?
Yeah, we usually do a fare audit survey about 3 times a year. With the introduction of Compass, we're not able to right now do the fare audit surveys because the 2 different types of fare media. So what we're doing is we're working on a different methodology that we will use with the Compass card. And we anticipate probably Q3 to be able to resume our fare audit surveys to estimate. The last year, it kind of does a bit of a blip, but it's maintained a stable level on the most recent one, which I think was up to September 2015. But unfortunately, as soon as we started integrating the Compass card, it's difficult to do an actual fare audit with 2 media forms. And with the new one, we're hoping to be able to use the handheld units to help with that.
If I could add on to that. So even though fare evasion has been relatively flat year over year, there's been a lot of work done within the organization. I know Chris leads a team with the Transit Police and our operating company. We look at fare evasion, we look at where the biggest impact are, so which stations has the highest fare evasions. They do a targeted approach on when they're going to do their fare evasion checks, as well as a lot of conversations on does it make sense to be more visible or does it make sense to be less visible. Also, we coordinated as we were shutting down gates. We actually had phoned the police and said, by the way, these are the gates we're going to be shutting down, these ones are going to be left open, and asked them to target those areas. So even though we haven't had a tremendous impact of seeing that go down. There's been a lot of effort. We do hope once gate closure is, and that's one of the reasons we're really pushing hard to get full gate closure happening, is that we can actually then see what our fare evasion rates have been in the past.
Marcella?
Thank you. Just one question on the savings that you have well achieved this year. Does that go into the surplus, or does that go into additional service, or is it a bit of a split?
We'd actually budgeted for that, so it was included in our budget. Savings.
So the savings haven't budgeted, so
Yes.
the funds have been used for services during the course of the year?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Barry. Thank you, Barry. Christine, I remember having fairly extensive discussion about funding for the continued advancing the design of the two rapid transit projects that are are part of the mayor's vision. And at that point in time, as I recall, I think it was a $15 million decision that was made by the board to advance them. And there was concern that it would affect TransLink's budget. How much of that money was spent in 2015? And was there an allowance made in the 2016 budget for the remainder? So I guess the question arises only because we achieved a better than budget variance. In other words, it was a positive variance, and we were concerned about the variance would be negative because of that decision, or there would have to be compromises made in other areas of the budget. So could you just provide me a little information about that?
Sure. We spent $6.4 million in the rapid transit studies. Every year we budget for a contingency. We don't, when we do our budgets every year, we don't have contingencies throughout the organization, and our practice is to have, I think last year it was about $11 million contingency. That's how we were able to spend that extra money from the rapid transit studies, is utilize that contingency. So we spent about $6.4 million in 2015, and we did budget for it in 2016.
So there was usually budget for it?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
What else for Christine on this subject? If not, we'll move to the 2015 Audited Consolidated Statements presentation. Just remind you that at the end of that, there is a resolution to be addressed. Okay, so Christine, here.
We don't really have a huge presentation. The audited financial statements, sorry?
Would you like to do it on the basis of if there are any questions, you'll deal with them, or do you have a presentation?
Yeah, no, I don't have a presentation other than the audited financial statements are in your packages. Our external auditor, KPMG, has given an unqualified opinion. We're very pleased with how the year end went. And yeah, I think it's probably best if I just open it up for questions, if there are any.
A motion in a second, and then we can have a discussion.
Mr. Chairman, happy to make that motion. It's in your package that the Audit Committee, it's a recommendation from the Audit Committee, that the TransLink Board of Directors approves the 2015 Audited Consolidated Financial Statements and authorize the Board Chair and Audit Committee Chair to sign the approved 2015 Audited Consolidated Financial Statements. That is the resolution I will make that.
Thank you. And is there a second? Seconded. Discussion, questions of Christine? Okay, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, I should be clear, just so you don't let this go by. The Audit Committee had a thorough discussion on the audited financial statements with management and with the external auditors. And do want to echo Christine's comments. The auditors, as importantly, gave us an unqualified opinion. And we're in fact complimentary about the state of the finances of the statements of the organization and the good working relationship with management and the Audit Committee. So pleased to be able to say that the statements reflect fairly in the organization, and the Audit Committee was very pleased to be able to work with the board on that.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Christine. You've got a couple of more reports.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll move on to the statutory annual report.
So for the 2015 statutory annual report, your approval is required. This report is required under our legislation to be submitted to the Mayor's Council each year. It is a report card of the region on what we did in the year compared to what we said we were going to do as outlined in the 2014 base plan. So included in the report is a summary of our operations, our audited financial statements, a summary of complaints and actions to respond to those complaints, summary of the articles, and a summary of board activities. So a big portion of this report are components of reports of which I've just gone over. But the key point is, this isn't looking at our budget, it's not looking at last year, it's looking at what we said we were going to do in our 2014 base plan. And as we move forward and we have another 10-year investment plan, this report will continue and it will be on what we said we were going to do in the year. So it's not just about the numbers, it's about everything that we said we were going to do in our service region.
Mr. Chairman, again, this was reviewed by the Audit Committee, and we did provide our feedback to management at that time regarding the report. It is, as Christine said, extensive, and the Audit Committee is satisfied, and the Audit Committee is recommending a resolution, which I would read to the board, that it approves the 2015 annual report mandated by the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Act, as presented in Appendix A to this report, and B, authorizes the release of the 2015 annual report to the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation. I will move that resolution.
Thanks, Barry. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any discussion, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Christine, on that. And Barry, there's one more for your committee.
Well, yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Again, the Audit Committee deals with the bylaws and property tax bylaw and the 2016 replacement tax bylaw, both of which are standard items which come to the Audit Committee for recommendation to the board. The proposed resolution, Mr. Chairman, is that the TransLink Board of Directors introduces and reads for a second and third time the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority 2016 Property Tax Bylaw number 106-2016, included in the report as Appendix 1. And B, that the TransLink Board of Directors reconsiders and finally adopts the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority 2016 Property Tax Bylaw number 106-2016, included in the report as Appendix 1. Mr. Chairman, this was thoroughly reviewed by the Audit Committee, and I will make that resolution.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Lorraine, thank you for seconding. And just before I call the question, did you want to make any comments, Christine, or is that the same?
Just a couple, if it's okay. Thank you. Just to explain, it is in your package, but just to highlight that the allowable property tax per legislation for 2016 is $323 million, plus $18 million for the replacement tax component, which totals $341 million. And as shown in your report, the combined property tax and replacement tax for 2016 results in the average homeowner paying $3.42 more than 2015, which works out to a 1.42% increase over 2014.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I kind of read half the resolution. No, it's actually part of the same resolution. I just read half of it. The second refers to the replacement tax bylaw, so I'm going to indulge the secretary and request support in amending. That the TransLink Board of Directors introduces and reads for a second and third time the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority 2016 replacement tax bylaw number 107 2016, included in the report as Appendix 2. That the TransLink Board of Directors reconsiders and finally adopts the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority 2016 replacement tax bylaw number 107-2016, included in the report. So my apologies, I should have read both of these.
So that will be the complete motion, and the seconder will you be seconding the complete motion?
I'll do that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, Barry. Thanks, Christine, for a lucid report. Okay, I think we can move Brenda to your committee, the Risk and Capital Committee. Would you mind doing the same, just sort of take over the chair for this part of it, and if you'd like
invite Sandy up now or wait?
He's here. You want to go stay, Sandy? Always thinking ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Risk and Capital Committee met on March 23rd, and as all of the committees have done, we reviewed our terms of reference. And given that we did the establishment of the committee just last year, a major overhaul of the terms of reference, we're not recommending any major changes at this point. We also went through, as the other committees did, our checklist of responsibilities for 2015 and provide a document that we covered all of our responsibilities as required in that year. We also did a review of the SkyTrain independent review, which our committee looks at every quarter to make sure that we're tracking the progress. That work continues on that on schedule, and progress is significant. The single biggest issue, of course, is getting the train started, the event of a major disruption, and lots of interim measures have been put in place to speed up that process, but we continue to have a longer-term goal of eventually getting to auto restart. That independent review is part of the consent agenda of your package, and it's for information. We also then had our quarterly real estate review, and the final thing that I wanted to mention before the special presentations that this board will have, first from Sandy on some major projects, and then from Lloyd on the Compass card. We also have one motion that requires board approval. So I'm just going to skip ahead to that. It's on the major road network. It's the last agenda item in my committee report. And it's basically housekeeping. It approves an overpass in Langley related to the Roberts Bank Rail project. The effect on TransLink is $35,000. So although it's housekeeping, it does require board approval. So I'm moving a motion that the TransLink Board of Directors introduces and reads a first, second, and third time the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Major Road Network Bylaw number 105-216 attached to this report, and reconsiders, passes, and adopts South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Major Road Network Bylaw number 101-2016. So I will make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? That's seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, we have some presentations that the committee received and thought that they should be presented at the board for information. There are no approvals required here, but I suspect there may be some questions. I'll turn it over to Sandy to start with the update on capital projects.
Thank you, Brenda. Members of the board, to provide an overview of the 4 major projects, and we'll be happy to take questions. 2 of the projects are the expansion of the Audit transit system, and I'll start with the one on the Millennium Line extension on the Broadway corridor. As mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have approval to proceed with preparing the business cases for this project in anticipation of senior government funding, as the Mayor's Council vision had expressed. So this one is extending the Millennium Line from BCC Clark towards Barbados in a tunnel project, and this will be serving the second busiest employment center in the province around the hospital district, and the Broadway can be in the last quarter, we worked very closely with both the province and the federal government on preparing the business case requirements, and the news last Tuesday was really good in anticipation of funding, and there was a recommitment to funding from senior government towards this project. So we're working on the different chapters required by the federal government to prepare the business case. This includes a concept design, updating the benefits using the latest forecasting and modeling and all the latest project information, and some technical and preliminary design work. We're also doing some preliminary environmental investigations, geotechnical investigations, and working with the senior stakeholder agencies. The next one is under program south of Fraser. This will represent the biggest expansion of rapid transit south of the Fraser. 2 lines, one connecting Newton and Guildford through Surrey City Centre, and what we call the L line, and the second one would be the diagonal connecting Surrey City Centre with Langley City. LRT, about 27 kilometers, 19 new LRT stops, and similarly strong senior government commitment to these projects. So we had approval to work on the business cases. Again, close cooperation with the municipalities and federal and provincial officials to work through the chapters needed on the business cases. We've been updating the regional travel demand model to nail down the latest benefits and ridership forecasts for this project, and preparing the business case submissions to be going into the federal government in 2016. This does involve, again, some stakeholder outreach, environmental work, and some geotechnical investigations, and what we call preliminary design at this stage. The third major initiative we're working on, which will be a state of good repair priority, is on the Petaloo Bridge, the existing Petaloo Bridge. As you recall, we are starting a significant deck rehabilitation project on the Petaloo Bridge. Work will start on site in the last weekend of April. We'll be closing 2 lanes on the bridge, keeping 2 lanes open. There will be some full closures during some nights and some weekends. These will be well publicized in advance. The work is needed to provide a bit more life for this deck. This is not an ultimate solution for the bridge. This is a temporary solution to give us another 6 or 7 years of life on that deck. We are expecting some significant traffic disruptions. This bridge is serving between 70 and 80,000 trips per day. So we are expecting disruptions, some diversion of traffic to other crossings. So we have put together a traffic mitigation plan to advise the public to expect disruptions, to look at their options, be it switching to transit, switching to different times of day to travel, or to switch to other crossings, or to examine whether they need to do that trip across the Fraser. We have invested in some frequency upgrades to 6 bus lines which serve the area around the Petaloo Bridge to try and mitigate some of the impact, but we are expecting some disruption. This will be one of the congestion choke points that Hayden mentioned earlier. The last project I want to address is the new Petaloo Bridge, and this is our ultimate solution for this structure. The board approved last year $20 million to get this to a procurement readiness stage. So in the last quarter, we have significantly advanced the business case submission to the federal government, and it will be going in tomorrow, March 31st is the deadline. And that's a significant milestone for this project, which gets us closer to receiving commitment for funding from the federal government for this project. We are aiming on a program to get to procurement readiness by the fall of 2017, and that would allow us to have a new bridge built and opened by either late 2022 or early 2023. Also in the last quarter, we achieved a very significant milestone in having agreement in principle on a memorandum of understanding with the cities of Surrey and New Westminster to guide the next phase of the project. We worked closely with staff from both cities, and the councils in both cities approved in principle the MOU, which we expect now to be signed any day. This will be a significant enhancement to the business case going to Ottawa, showing that local support and cooperation are doing well on this project. So with that, we have to take any questions.
Thank you, Sammy. Are there any questions? Marcella, then Tony.
Thank you. Good report. Thank you very much. On the Petaloo Bridge, traffic changes during this period of construction that you have, are you banning trucks from the road entirely, from the bridge?
We had looked at whether or not we need to, and there were early iterations of the rehabilitation project which would have required that. But then when we downscoped the project to a simpler deck rehabilitation, we were able to manage the lane arrangements to be able to allow trucks to keep on using the bridge. I should note that the speed limit will be 30. So there will be an enforcement of the speed limit. We are expecting traffic to be slow and steady, and truckers will need to make a decision, is it worth their while to deal with that congestion or to leave it? But trucks will be allowed.
So you talked about the work extending the deck for 6 to 7 years, which seems to time with the new bridge. If there's a delay in the new bridge, what steps can we take with respect to these
will become a day-by-day maintenance and management issue. We need to make sure that the bridge is safe. So if we are delayed in the new bridge, we will be consulting with the deck condition experts. And we may be in a situation where we have frequent closures to repair potholes or to be ahead of the potholes, which is why we're saying we do need that new bridge by that time frame. We could be in a situation where there are significant and repeated disruptions to stay ahead of the condition of the deck by the year 2022 or 2023.
So if there are no further questions, thank you, Sani, and I will see you again next quarter. And I'll invite Lloyd, please. Lloyd Bauer will come up now, and he will provide a quick update on Compass Card.
Thank you and good morning. In your package, you'll have the written report for providing an update on Compass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide an update on the key transition pieces and the main challenges we're working through in this last stage of the project. In terms of a highlight in terms of the project, we've continued our phased rollout with the transition of Compass cards and Compass tickets, nearing the full rollout. As Kathy mentioned earlier, we have over 700,000 Compass cards active on the system, which is well above our original target. And we're seeing over 300,000 individual unique cards tapped every business day on the system. That brings us to a substantial completion from our transition of the fare media, and I'll talk a bit and show you where we are with that in a couple slides here. All equipment and retail locations are in place, and we're no longer selling our traditional paper monthly fare cards and fare savers through our retail channels. So we're entering the final stage of full gate closure, and in preparation, we've been staging our gate closure to where we have almost all gates, except for one accessible gate, closed at all arrays within all of our 50 stations. So really our next stage really is that last gate right now. That's where we're working to now. Beginning in February and continuing throughout March, we have been conducting what we're calling demo full gate closures. This is where we select a specific station and provide attendants and transit police staffing to demonstrate a full gate closure at the station. This enables us to assist customers in their transition, help to educate if there's more information required for them, and also for us to get a better understanding of the customer's needs in a closed gate scenario. These gate closures have provided valuable insight as we prepare for the full gate closure across the SkyTrain system that's beginning the week of April 4th. On the slide on the screen now, I've put up a chart, and the next two charts are really to show the transition from our traditional fare media to Compass. This slide shows the transition from paper monthly passes. The red bar representing our traditional paper monthly passes, and the blue bar is Compass. So you'll see, as of January, we were fully transitioned to Compass for the monthly passes, and have been since January of this year, and then fully converted on monthly passes. The next chart shows our conversion for fare savers, the paper fare saver products that were previously sold through our retail channel. So this chart shows that transition to what really is the Compass stored value on a card. We've seen a rapid adoption as shown in the chart here, beginning in October of last year. The yellow bars show the daily value of sales of the traditional paper fare savers, and Compass stored value sales are represented by the blue line as you see. Fare dealers are no longer selling fare savers, and that began in February, that they were no longer selling those products. And now in March, we're beginning to see the stored value sales in Compass starting to level off. We're starting to see that last part of that blue bar starting to level. In summary, the rapid adoption of Compass has positioned us well to move to the final stage of full gate closure, with the vast majority of customers traveling with Compass. Our upcoming focus now is really on transition to this gate closure and beginning the transition of Access Transit's handyDart customers to Compass. Our Our customer communication, which is underway through radio and print ads, is focused on preparing customers for the upcoming gate closure, reminders that fare savers are no longer going to be valid on rail and C-bus, and for those who wish to transfer from bus to rail, that they require Compass if they're doing that transfer intermodal. We're seeing a very busy customer service center at Stadium for Compass right now as we're nearing the April 4th, primarily with customers that are converting their remaining fare savers to Compass. So we're seeing people handing in their fare saver packs that they have, and they're transferring. We take them and we transfer them over to a Compass card, and we go with the card. It's very busy right now as this April 4th date is coming up. Of course, fare savers are still valid on the bus and still can be used on the bus. It's only if you're going through the gated system. We've also been working with the province on providing Compass cards to those eligible for the BC Bus Pass, which are outside of the TransLink service region in the Lower Mainland. As you may recall, we've been providing Compass program cards to BC bus holders in the Lower Mainland for over 2 years on Compass. So this extends Compass to those outside of the Lower Mainland for travel within the TransLink service region. The project remains on schedule and within budget from the last report. Lastly, I'll mention the key challenges we're focused on right now. This final stage will be challenging as we're seeing what really is the late adopters transitioning to Compass. And as the gates are closed, those who are unwilling to pay the fare are coming to the gate that's closed. So to help with this, we're increasing and have increased support at the gates that's coming up in early April. Additional attendance, additional outreach, transit police in attendance as well. During the stage gate closure that's happening the week of April 4th to help the remaining customers transition. For Access Transit handyDart, our near-term focus is on the small number of customers who include travel to or from conventional transit as part of their trip. So we're working with the operations groups on the communication and procedures to provide Compass to those handyDart customers as well. Full gate closure does not come without challenges, so as I mentioned, we're providing that attendant coverage when the gates are closed. We're also assessing the challenge that some customers are having in physically tapping a card, which you've heard about, during this transition period. We're extending our station assistance program for the visually impaired to those who require assistance tapping as well. And when attendants are not available, we've committed to have one accessible gate open during this transition period as well. Our experience, however, does show an open gate has fare enforcement challenges that come with it. It's very apparent as soon as the gates are closed. That really jumps out at you as to who has fare and who does not. It's very apparent as soon as all gates are closed. That brings me to the end of my update, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Lloyd? Larry and then Marcella?
I understand with the full gate closures, you're expecting to have a revenue increase, isn't that right? And what's the scale of that?
There will be, and it really relates to what is part of the fare evasion question that came up earlier around what that number looks like. We've certainly had experience while we're doing the fare gate closures where we're seeing an uptick in ticket sales during those periods of time when we're noticing that. In the grand scale of the number of cards that out and the number of transactions out, it's a small number, but there is a noticeable increase in ticket sales at a station where we're doing their gate closure. And we'll continue, I would expect to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd, we talked about this years ago. Are you experiencing any issues with closed gates, entering or exiting mass events such as a hockey game?
Really what you're hitting or questioning around is the direction of the gates. The gates that are put in, they have an ability to be set by our fare gate control. So the fare gates are there both on Canada Line and on SkyTrain. There's a control center that we have staffed where individuals that monitor and manage the fare gates have ability to change how the gate operates. They can open a gate as well. They can change the direction. They can make it what's called unidirectional, or it can be bidirectional. So right now we've set them primarily, they're all bidirectional. They can open and close either way, whether you're coming in or out of the station. What they are doing around the fare gate control positions are looking at the pattern of flow, time of day, advance, what direction are people going, and are looking to make adjustments. They're already trying some of those, they're trialing some as well, and looking, okay, during this period of time, we have an inflow coming this direction, we have some people trying to get out, so we'll set this gate or this set of gates to a certain direction to help with that flow. That's work that's over time, and I think as time goes on, we're going to refine that and look at what makes the most sense to help with that flow and start to set those in one direction so that you don't end up with this, with one person on either side of the gate trying to get through.
And is that the, sorry, if I may follow ahead on that? Thank you, Lloyd. Is that the same for, let's say, C-bus rush hour, we're just ramming off the C-bus at one time? You can reverse the flow of the gates, or you're not experiencing any issues?
Correct. C-bus is the same. We have the same ability with C-bus. Yeah.
And sorry, one last question. Your reference to the open gate. So those who can't access or effectively utilize the compass to open a gate, you've got a solution which says that you will have an attendant if it's not open, or if there's no attendant, it will be open, so it will be fully accessible. Is that the long-term solution, or are you working on something else?
We're doing, this transition period that we're talking about is when we're really looking at assessing that. Right now we have a handyDart solution, we have a handycart for a tenant program, and we've added a station assistance program as well. So those are currently what's in place. During this transition period, we're also doing to assess, is that what we'll look at long-term? We're going out right now, there's more work happening to consult with the individuals we're talking about, to really look at what works for them, what solutions could be in place for that, if it's something different that's required. So that's really what work that's going on over the next couple months here to really look at that, to really do a deeper dive assessment on that, and really assess what it looks like in practice as we have the gates closed starting in that first week of April.
Thank you.
So thank you. If there are no further questions, I would just like to conclude by thanking Lloyd and Kathy for their tremendous work on the Compass card. As Lloyd has pointed out, there's still some work to be done to get this kind of across the line, but we recognize the very hard work that the two of you have done with your teams to get this project back on track. I know it's not over yet, you're still working long hours, but I do want to recognize your efforts and the success that you've had to date. So thank you, Lloyd. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report from the Risk and Capital Committee.
Thanks very much, Brenda. At this point, I'm going to do a bit of a time check. It's very close to 11 o'clock, and a number of delegations have made special efforts to be here for 11 o'clock. We have one report, we have two committee reports, one of which includes a report from Tim Savoy. And Lorraine, your committee report would be next. I'm wondering if you would mind if we ask Tim to come up and give his report right now and deal with that, and if we can complete the two committee reports fairly quickly, we can get that done before the delegations, but I'm going to judge the time once Tim's report. Is that okay with you? Okay. Tim, do you mind coming up and giving your report now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm happy here today to talk about the transit network review and consultation process, which we're concluding as of today. TransLink constantly monitors transit use across the network, bring more service to where our customers need it, reduce overcrowding on some busy routes, and better match customer demand to the service we provide. With no new funding, ongoing management of the network is critical to serving more customers with existing resources. The review is a regular process to respond to the needs to our customers. The two main objectives. One, to better meet customer needs through system efficiencies. We seek opportunities to maximize ridership and provide new connections where they don't exist, ease overcrowding, and improve productivity of the system within, as I mentioned, with our current resources. A big part of this review, almost 1/3 of the 85 changes that we consulted on, involve integration with integrating our bus service with the new Evergreen line that's being constructed in the northeast sector. And I'll talk more specifically about the large number of benefits that will be provided as part of that review in moments of the presentation. So we are redesigning a significant number of bus routes, over 22 bus routes in the northeast sector. This is required to make more convenient connections to each of the stations. Our process involved consulting with a number of people. More than 12,000 people participated in this process, which is unprecedented in our history. As well, it's the largest number of changes we've ever consulted on here at TransLink. This was 12 times higher than previous processes typically would anticipate receiving feedback on. So since the consultation period, as I reported at Christmas time, we've analyzed numbers of all the surveys and refined proposals based on what we heard. So of the 85 changes, that involved 30 packages of information, and we're proceeding with 26 of those packages. The point to note, though, is that we're making changes to over half of those proposals that we're proceeding with based on what we heard. The next part of the process will involve engaging our municipal partners as we implement these through our quarterly bus changes. Actually, the recommendation slide over here. Thank you. So changes will provide new connections, ease overcrowding, and improve productivity of the system. Some of the highlights, I talked about the Evergreen line extension. Specifically, we're making better connections, more direct connections to each of the stations. And this will involve a significant number of bus routes changing. I mentioned 22 bus routes changing in the Tri-Cities. Of those changes, some of them will involve the elimination of duplication of services. For example, the 97B line, which is a route that runs parallel to the SkyTrain station. So with the hours being removed, we are reinvesting those hours in the Tri-Cities, which equals roughly about 20% of the total bus service hours in the Tri-Cities are going to be reinvested to improve service and to make better connections to the new SkyTrain. We're creating a new Hastings B line. And this will provide faster service from Simon Fraser University to downtown Vancouver. Expanding service in the Willoughby area, which currently does not have bus service, with the introduction of the 208. And making some changes to our service to the ferry terminals, where, for example, the 620, that is the bus from Bridgeport Station to Wasson Ferry Terminal, 90% of those customers are actually going directly to the ferry terminal. So we're reducing stops and reducing time on that route so they can get there quicker. As well, we're introducing new service in Port Coquitlam, servicing the Dominion Triangle, which is a growing industrial commercial area. And lastly, improving reliability on busy community shuttle routes here in New Westminster that we've heard from the municipality to fix. So these changes will be rolled out through service changes that occur 4 times a year. The timing for a lot of these has not yet been established, but will be in partnership with our municipal partners. So ahead of any changes that we're anticipating, we will be communicating with our customers that will be affected by a number of different opportunities, reaching out. So today we're very pleased to release the final transit network consultation report, which really aims to serve more customers with existing resources. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thanks very much, Tim. And if you don't mind staying there, Lorraine, I'm going to turn this over to you. This is your part of the report, so if you want to sort of chair this part for any questions and for your own report, I think we have time to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So why don't we proceed with addressing any questions that we have to Tim, and then we can move on to the general report. For the board, I know you all saw the 150 pages that are in our package that went with this report. Tim did a very high-level briefing summary of that information. The full report will be available to the public, and there's a lot of detail and information in there. If you have any specific questions for Tim, now's your opportunity. Tim.
So Tim, obviously lots of consultation happened, and you're clearly listening, but do any noteworthy examples come to mind where, because of what you listened to, you changed the direction, you changed the decision because of the public input?
Absolutely, there's been a number of cases. So of the 26 proposals that we're proceeding with, we're actually amending 14 of those based on exactly what we heard. Others, cases, for example, like 258 West Vancouver, there was a direct one-seat bus from West Van to UBC. A lot of concerns raised, so we are deferring those types of that change at this point until we can consult further. Other changes in the city of Coquitlam as well, connections to the Avery line, we're actually consulting further on these changes. And another example, I mentioned about the ferry connection from Bridgeport to Tawasin. There was concern, new service to the Tawasin Mall was required. So we made those changes as well. Local service was a key issue for the First Nations community there, so we retained one stop, which was anticipated to be removed as part of this process. So we are listening and trying to respond in any manner that we can based on what we have in terms of resources.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I'll go on with that to my report, Mr. Chair. So the Stakeholder Relations Committee consists of 4 members of the board. We also reviewed our terms of reference and duties that we were scheduled to complete for 2015, and I can report that we completed all of those tasks. We're working on some major projects going forward. We have the fund opportunity to look at the planning, to do some of the early thinking. So one of the projects that we're working on is the fare policy review, and the fare policy review will consider changes to our fare structure. I noticed today that we have a speaker coming in today to speak about that, which is great feedback for us as we consult with our customers. This consultation is just beginning, and we are anticipating that this will take approximately 2 years to complete. So this will be an ongoing update that will come to the board. And we're also anticipating high engagement on this matter because I think it's an issue that's ultimately important for the user of the system. The other issue that we talked about, which is goods movement strategy, and this is also a thing that is very important for our region, moving goods around our region. We have very active ports here. We're the hub for the Pacific Coast, and so that's important that we move our people and our goods around in our region. We're also beginning a review of what's called the Southwest Area Transport Plan, and that plan, which includes Richmond Delta and the Tawasin First Nations. This is in phase 1. It's going to be in consultation from April the 11th to May the 9th as phase 1 will go, and that will continue on after the next step. We received a report from our communications group on communications and customer engagement. They've been very active in the last quarter dealing with issues related to the final steps of closing the gates, CEO announcement, Kevin Desmond joining us, transit network consultation, all the different issues that we have in front of us. We are working on our annual report, which is scheduled to come out in the next while. Management reported on an exciting new partnership in regards to a project that we're working on with United Way and TransLink. We're remaining balances on our Compass cards for guests that might have left the country and wanted to donate them for a good charitable cause here in Vancouver. They would drop them in a box, and then United Way would manage all the requests that would come in on that, so we're very excited about that. We've been working on our first joint Mayor's Council and TransLink Directors meeting together, which is scheduled for May the 26th. And that's where both of us get together and talk about what are the mayor's issues and the board's issues, and so we're looking forward to that dialogue. And then my final duty was to introduce Tim, but Tim's gone now, so my report's over. So that's it. Any questions?
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we have 5 minutes on the agenda for the report from Jim Chu on the Human Resources and Governance Committee. I think that I would rather conclude our morning business. So Jim, if you don't mind doing it, even though we're running just a little bit late, that would be great. Thanks, Jim.
I'll just go quickly. First of all, I'm the new chair of the committee. I took over from Brian Cunningham, and thank you, Ray, for taking us through a difficult task of selecting a new CEO. On the HR front, the committee received the annual people report, and pleased to note in the report that our organization won our BC Top Employer Award, so that's great news for us as the board, as well as the 6,900 employees that we have. The report has many great metrics in terms of staff wellness and recruitment and mentorship development, and also the award-winning achievements of many of our staff are highlighted in the report. The committee also received updates on labor relations and our HR quarterly report. On the governance front, again, just quickly, we are improving our open board meetings. This is the first meeting where we have video being taken that will be posted on our website. The cost of this is minimal, using existing resources. We examined webcasting, and to do that would have cost between $5,000 and $10,000 because it's equipment that we don't have right now. So we think we can make great strides forward in terms of openness and transparency by recording and posting the video. The committee also discussed the code of conduct for directors and reviewed annual director disclosure statements. Also received a report from our conduct review advisor, Mr. Neil Gelder, and we will be reappointing Mr. Neil Gelder in that role on a continuing go-forward basis.
Thanks, Jim. You could take any questions you'd like.
Any questions?
That was quick, thank you. We're now at a point where we will take a very quick break, and then we will go into the delegation portion. So I'm just going to ask the board members if you could sort of stick to about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back here for the delegations. The delegation portion of this meeting is to mention a process that we've decided to follow in the future. Some of you might have been here for our December open board meeting, and we had a number of very heartfelt presentations from delegations, and a number of them required follow-up on our part. In fact, most delegations do bring information to us and questions and so on that we feel it's important to follow up on. And as we've always done, that follow-up did take place. And before we actually ask the delegations to come and give their presentations, I'm going to ask Kathy McClay to give a report on the response to the delegations in the December meeting.
Thank you, Doug. As you mentioned, December 9th, we had 12 delegates come to our open board meeting. 10 of the 12 delegates spoke about our Access Transit program. Their topics ranged concerns included the handyDart delivery service model that we have today, the customer experience provided by the MBT, the provider, the amount of service that we're providing currently, scheduling practices, primarily around health issues, so the dialysis, and looking at other alternatives for technology other than the light rapid transit for Surrey. So we've investigated each one of those topics, and management appreciates, of course, all the comments we hear, and take that opportunity to reach out. And so staff has reached out to members of the board of the handyDart Riders Alliance. They've talked to the executive of the Amalgamation Transit Union, Vancouver General Hospital about staffing and scheduling for dialysis, as well as the Access Transit User Advisory Committee. So from that, we've made many actions. So some of them include reviewing the MBT existing procedures, especially when it comes to resolving customer service feedback and identifying practices and improvements on it. So currently our practice is that the complaints go to MBT. MBT normally handles it. When the complaints go over, it goes to our operating company. We then investigate it. So we're going to be much more actively involved at the operating companies between Coast Mountain Bus Company and MBT to review the customer complaints. We're also doing a organizational structure change on just how we're going to handle that full program, that Access Transit program. Part of it has started as we speak, and we've implemented some of it, but the other parts will take up to Q3 to actually do a full implementation of the restructuring on that. We're reviewing the service templates for a trip for medical and making sure that this population group have regular scheduled trips, so if they know that they're going to be going for dialysis every week, that they don't have to phone in every week, that we'll schedule that as well. And of course we're reviewing the handyDart service contract as we speak. So many of you know that the MDT contract comes up for renewal at the end of the year. We do have a steering committee that's working on it. We'll take the input from our operating companies, TransLink, as well as our consultation piece on it. Part of that consultation and a normal course of business is that we will review, does it make sense to still contract it out, or whether it makes sense to bring it in-house. So all of that will take place over the next 2 quarters, and a determination will be made at that point about whether we will move forward and issue an RFP, or whether we'll consider moving that product inside in TransLink. I also wanted to remind the board, you heard today that we spent another $1 million last year in trying to provide taxi service to augment some of the handyDart service on that. We believe that's been a successful program. It's included or allowed 36,000 additional rides. We know it's still not enough, but given the funding envelope, we've made a significant improvement and reduced denials by over 90%. So the other 2 pieces I want to talk about is on the transit networking plan. We had a gentleman come and talk about that route. Tim Savoy provided an update today about the 85 route changes, and we will change that individual. And the last one that came forward was Surrey light rail projects on it, and we've expanded it to our board. We got an approval to look at our study, and our study has been expanded to consider what technologies on southern line between King George and Langley. So those studies are underway as we speak. We're informing both the board and the public on the results of those as well.
Thanks very much, Kathy. Now, we're going to get to the delegation portion where you get to speak. If you've let us know that you're interested in the time that we asked you to do that. And we've had more delegations asked to speak today than we would typically have time for on the commitment that you will get up to 5 minutes to give your presentation. We also are limited, or we try to limit this portion to 1 hour. As I said, we would likely go over that amount of time if everyone spoke and took the allotted time. If you're on our list, we will allow you to be heard even if it goes past the hour. But what I'm going to do now is read the list of names just so that you have some idea in which order I'll be calling you. And then you can come up and we're using this. When it's your turn, if you come up to the microphone that's at the board table here, we'd appreciate it. This is the list: Murray Thompson, Anita Huberman, Maria Robinson, Roseanne Shannon, Dan Longhurst, Marty Copeland, Danielle White, Patrick Maxey, Tim Lewis, Isabel Kolick, Archie Kaur, Angela Fink, and Tyler Felbell. There were
three individuals who asked to speak, who had spoken at the December meeting, and recognizing that we would not have time in the allotted space, we advised those individuals and indicated that they could come on a kind of a standby basis today, so that if we did get finished, the people on the list that I just read out within an hour, we would allow them to give their presentation as well. So we'll see how it goes, but we will try to limit our time to 5 minutes for each of the individuals who are on the list I just read. So Murray Thompson, if you're here, could you come forward? If Murray is not here and Murray shows up within the next hour, we'll allow Murray to give a presentation. The next is Anita Huberman. Anita? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everyone, thank you so much. Chair Don Rose. Got it. Thank you. Chair Don Rose, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. I'm Anita Huberman. I'm CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade. And last fall, I was appointed chair of a grassroots coalition called Light Rail Links Coalition. We're a community coalition that supports light rail transit for communities south of the Fraser. Our coalition represents community groups, neighborhoods, business associations, and business organizations. I want to begin by thanking you for your work on the business case for light rail transit, that's LRT, along the Fraser Highway. This work is crucial to delivering on the transportation priorities identified by the Mayor's Council vision for Metro Vancouver. As you know, we need a more efficient transit system to move people around in Surrey and in Langley. Transit is underfunded south of the Fraser, tragically underfunded south of the Fraser, and has been for a very long time. Now is the time to invest south of the Fraser. As the fastest growing city in British Columbia, Surrey needs a solution that can help shape growth and build and connect our communities. The complete 27-kilometer LRT system is the right solution. LRT is a cost-effective and high-quality form of rapid transit that will link more communities than SkyTrain. The SkyTrain system is focused on moving people in and out of Vancouver. That's not the service that we need to expand south of the Fraser. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to move people from Newton to City Centre, to Guildford, to Fleetwood, to Langley Centre. And that's what LRT can achieve for the smallest investment and greatest return. The complete 27-kilometer LRT system will help build integrated communities, create jobs and business opportunities, and generate millions in federal and provincial tax returns. We know the impact of LRT will have on the development of our communities. We engaged in a survey conducted of 21 developers by the City of Surrey. 72% said that the presence of LRT would influence their decision on whether to invest or develop in Surrey. And 95% said that it is important that rapid transit is implemented in Surrey sooner rather than later. We also know that community supports your LRT vision. According to surveys in 2013 and in 2016, 80% of Surrey residents support LRT, and almost 2/3 say they would use at least one of the proposed LRT lines. Surrey is growing by approximately 1,000 people a month. We're going to be the largest city in British Columbia. We're looking at an innovative transit solution for our city and for the South Fraser region. We now need to look at how we move this project forward. One of the key considerations for realizing this vision is identifying the funding. We have heard support from our provincial government, particularly for the L-line portion of the system. They have yet to indicate support for the Fraser Highway portion. As we all know, the federal government is currently looking for shovel-ready and shovel-worthy projects across Canada to commit funding to the near term. And we want Surrey's proposed 27-kilometer LRT system to be one of those projects. To secure formal funding commitments from both the province and the federal government, we need to ensure the project is shovel-ready and shovel-worthy, having a complete business case. To do that, I'm asking you to prioritize and finish the design work on the Fraser Highway portion of the LRT system. As I mentioned earlier, the proposed LRT system is based on 27 kilometers of transit to not only connect the communities of Surrey, but also those of Langley City and Langley Township. This is a clear reflection of the Mayor's Council vision to connect our communities, an outcome SkyTrain is unable to match. The LRT along the Fraser Highway is an integral piece of that vision and of the system, and it cannot be separated from the rest of the LRT network. To ensure this, again, I reiterate that the design work along Fraser Highway is needed now. Developing the complete 27-kilometer LRT system is critical to the south of the Fraser. It's critical to our future. In addition to being the best suited rapid transit for our community's long-term plan, it's also the most affordable for the region. You have the ability to hold TransLink staff accountable to the work that is needed to move this project forward. I'm asking you to continue to champion the needs of our region, of Surrey, of Langley, and communities south of the Fraser, and to ensure the work needed to secure this project is completed. I thank you for your time, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Anita. Just to be clear in terms of questions, we may not have time for questions or comment or feedback back to you, but as you can see from the report that Kathy gave, every one of the delegations is listened to carefully, and a response is given as appropriate over the course of the next short while. But I don't think we'll have time for questions or comment, so I appreciate your being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Maria Robinson.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Maria Robinson. I'm co-chair of the transit team for the Metro Vancouver Alliance. Mr. Desmond, I think you've worked with our sister organization, the Sound Alliance in King County, over other transit issues there. For those of you who are not aware, the Metro Vancouver Alliance is a broad-based alliance of community groups, labor, faith, and educational organizations across the Lower Mainland. We are made up of over 50 organizations at this point, and we represent almost 250,000 people, or a little bit over actually. So TransLink is embarking on a review of its fare structure. My hope is that this will not lead to fare increases, just changes. Fare increases are not going to lead to any more bums in the seats, and people are not going to be happy. We're asking TransLink to work with the Metro Vancouver Alliance on a proposal that will be developed through our listening campaigns. One that will respect the dignity of the residents in this region, one that will be affordable and accessible, and allow people the freedom of movement, to work, to live, and to play. A proposal that will be a viable option in your review process. Our listening campaign is still unfolding, but here are a few things I do know already from the meetings we've had with our members. This new structure must include handyDart. In fact, I urge you to integrate handyDart as soon as possible into the regular fare system. I saw that on the list of things that you're working on right now, and I'm glad, because it's unacceptable to make people pay twice just because the Commons Card payments aren't accepted on handyDart, and the handyDart fares aren't accepted as transfers on public transit. So you do have people that use handyDart exclusively, and then you have people who use buses and SkyTrain exclusively. But there are a large number of people who use both. And for that reason, the payment must be integrated across the system. It's easier on users and it's easier on TransLink. The new fare structure must also include families. The Sunday family passes have been sorely missed by our members. Many of our families now have to choose between a trip out on the weekend to take their kids to the park or to the museum or to see family. It's between that or groceries, clothes, and school supplies. And then we have low-income single parents. They're scraping by and they find themselves in a predicament every day because they need to use transit to get their children to school, to get food from the food bank, or take their kids to the doctor. All of those kids have to come on the trip if they're too young to stay home alone. So that's multiple fare payments for every person on that single trip on a single salary. So we need to find a way to accommodate dependents. The Single Mothers Alliance is one of our members, and they've proposed a solution called the Family Bundle Pass. That's something to look into. The new structure must include everyone, regardless of income, ability, or geographical location. I met a man at Carnegie during the referendum campaign last year. He didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. He found a job, but it was in Langley. So how was he going to afford to get to his job? There weren't enough free fare savers available for him to get there and back during those first 2 weeks before the first paycheck. So he had to turn down the job. And I can't imagine what that decision must be like. So perhaps we also need to think about our alternative payment plans too, or even better timed fares to a living wage. I know that's complex, but it does sound like a nice idealistic dream. And then there's the distance issue. So considering the cost of housing in this region, my personal opinion is that people have to commute long distances because they've been forced to move further and further away from their jobs and their families and their communities. They shouldn't be penalized for that. A trip is a trip and should cost as much. So I don't actually know what role distance should play in the end run in this new fare structure. We'll have to see what our members say and what kind of plans we end up developing. But I don't want to get caught up in this rhetoric of who's subsidizing whose trip. I don't think that's fair. Every trip is equally valid and should not be judged against others. So we need to remember that we each have our own circumstances. We all make compromises and end up where we do for various reasons. Movement across this region is a right, and we need a fare structure that will make it accessible and affordable to everyone who uses it. So work with us, be open to our proposals, and recognize that this is an opportunity for true community relationship building. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maria. Your time is perfect. I've got Gigi's making a clock problem here for me, so thank you very much.
Good girl, Maria.
Oh, yeah.
That goes down. Is Roseanne Shannon here?
I come today as a handyDart client, a representative of the handyDart Riders Alliance, and a taxpayer who has worked in healthcare for over 29 years. I'd like to tell you what's broken within the handyDart system, in my opinion, and propose a solution. Let's start with what's broken. This service has been contracted out to an American-based company, one whose sole purpose is to make money. Well, I can only assume that in order to make money, they need to reduce their bottom line. So they're handed millions of dollars and told to run the system. They don't need to pay for office space, supplies, or equipment. They don't pay for the buses. They don't pay for insurance, and they don't pay for the fuel. MVT pays the employees. In order to make money, they manipulate statistics. They make ridership appear lower than it is. Lower ridership means less buses required. Stats are manipulated in the following way. Rides denied have become unaccommodated, waitlist requests, or client refusals. A client refusal occurs when a client is offered a ride in one direction only and told handyDart can't find a bus for the other leg of the journey. The client is still asked if they'd like to have that ride. Not surprisingly, the answer is no, turning a trip denial into a client refusal. We talk about the taxi pilot project. You people took 10,000 service hours and assigned those hours to taxis. This allowed the contractor to eliminate 28 full-time positions. taxis whose drivers are supposedly trained to deal with handyDart clients, yet their training amounts to a couple of hours on a one-time only basis. They are not held to the same standards as handyDart drivers, resulting in numerous complaints and safety issues. I personally have ridden a taxi once in a scooter, which I used to have to use. This occurred on Monday, February the 18th, 2013. The taxi arrived at Royal Columbian Hospital, which is where I work. The driver loaded me into the taxi, slammed the back gate, and climbed into the seat, where he looked at me in the rearview mirror and said, "Your tires are in the way. Don't worry, I'll drive carefully." And away we went. No seatbelt, no safety device of any sort. Over the Batella Bridge. I was dumbstruck. handyDart's customer service was already closed, but you can believe that I called them to let them know that I would never allow them to put me in that situation again. As a result, a no taxi note was placed on my file, and I was made aware that because I was a no taxi, my ride pickup times could not be guaranteed, and I might be required to wait beyond the regular 30-minute pickup window. In essence, my concern for my own safety resulted in the possibility of being penalized and forced to wait an undetermined amount of time. How can we fix this? You can start by admitting that the taxi pilot project has failed. Taxi drivers are in the business of making money. They transport people who open their own doors, seat themselves, and they drive away. They get to their destination, they pay their fare, and they get out, allowing the driver to move on. Taxi drivers are not prepared for clients who require assistance, clients who have a variety of mobility devices. I'm asking you to reinstate the 10,000 service hours back into handyDart. Client safety is at risk as long as you maintain blind faith that this project is working. Secondly, you need to stop contracting out this service. As a taxpayer, I am particularly disturbed when tax dollars are being handed over to a company whose sole purpose is to take my money out of this country. MPT is essentially siphoning my tax money straight to Texas, and it's time that stopped. Contracting out, privatizing public service does not work. Trust me, I've worked in healthcare a long time, and I've witnessed the results. I'd also like to know why there is no handyDart client represented on the TransLink board. Who better to provide an accurate opinion of the needs of the handyDart client than someone like myself, who's required to use the system a minimum of 5 days a week, going to and from work, attending aquafit, yoga, doctor's appointments, and family functions when I can get a ride. Getting a ride involves being on the phone at 1 minute prior to the time that the booking agents open, and making sure that you hit that button exactly when it rolls over to either 8 a.m. during the week or 8:30 on the weekend. If I'm lucky, I'm one of the first 7 or 8 callers, and I'm almost always able to get a ride or at least something close to the time that I want to be anywhere. Otherwise, I have waited, I'm the 23rd, 24th person in line, and my rides are unaccommodated wait list. On to the solution. Who can run our paratransit system in the Lower Mainland? The obvious solution is for TransLink to take the system in-house. handyDart has been made top-heavy with management, which would no longer be required if you bring the service in. We need the system to be run by people who are not looking to make a buck to the detriment of the people who require this service. Again, I state, handyDart must be brought in-house. This board works for the public. Let's restore accountability to the public, which will in turn restore public faith in TransLink. I understand Kevin Desmond on February 10th of this year stated he will work to restore public transit, public trust, and confidence in the Lower Mainland mass transit system. Let's make that happen. May I remind you, there is also an election coming. As a member of the HRA, I speak to you on behalf of every single handyDart rider. This board works for all of us, and our voices will be heard, whether that is now or in May 2017. This is not rocket science. Last time I checked, handyDart did not take clients to the moon. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.
I have a copy of my speech, and I also have a copy of a response from the Minister of Transportation's office, who clearly states that TransLink is an independent organization responsible for handling its own day-to-day operations, which includes making determinations about service provision. So the decision is up to you guys, not them.
Thank you. Dan Longhurst, is Dan here? I'll call Dan's name again later. I'm just going to double check. Is Murray Thompson here? Okay. Go to Marty Copeland. Are you Marty? Thank you. I want to make sure I got the right person.
Some of you may know. First of all, good morning. Mr. Desmond, welcome to Canada. Here today I'm going to talk to you about contracting out and as opposed to in-house, how it works and what the problems are. Now, back in 2008, you signed a contract with an outside provider to provide the handyDart service. Now, what it did was create a situation where that provider needs to make profit. There's two things that he worries about. One is his client, which is you, the TransLink board. The other one is money. Okay, so the only way you can do that in this service is reduce the service. You can call it streamlining, whatever you want, but you reduce the service. So we move on past the strike we had. I start hearing from clients because I'm a driver. I also sit on the executive board of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 1724. I represent the office staff, the drivers, and maintenance. So I know what's happening all over the place. So when I hear from clients that they're not getting a ride day after day, I'm a driver. I know there's something wrong. So what I did the FOI information. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's freedom of information. Right out of your files. Right out of your files. Refusals and denials through the roof. Through the roof. Because of the service provider you have. The service needs to go in-house. So moving forward, what happens? We come up with a special little name called unaccommodated standbys to take some of the pain out of denials. Unaccommodated standby is a denial. So you take refusals, denials, unaccommodated standby. Again, through the roof. So what do we do moving forward? Now we take 10,000 service hours out of the handyDart bus system, put them in a taxi pilot project. The company eliminates 28 full-time runs. That's the equivalent of 55,000 service hours. But wait, you put 10,000 into the taxi, so we're only losing 45,000 service hours. Again, doesn't work. Moving forward, what do we do now? TransLink puts $1 million into taxis. Still's not working. Let's change the window. Now we got an hour on each side of the window. Ridiculous. For seniors, you can't do that to them. And that's what you're doing. So we move forward. Let's move right up to 2015. How many service hours, does anybody here know, how many service hours was the contractor supposed to supply for 2015? Does anybody here know that? Anybody? I do. It's 598,000. Now remember the 45,000 hours that are gone because they eliminated those jobs? Well, in 2015, they put out 553 service hours. That's what they completed. You add the 45,000 service hours. That's their contracted amount of hours. That 45,000 service hours is profit in their pockets. That means people are on the side of the road. Does anybody know how many refusal, denials, and unaccommodated standbys there were for 2015? Anybody? Over 30,000. It's not working. You need to bring the service in-house. One of the benefits of in-house, your system now is convoluted. You have TransLink, Access Transit, the contractor, and then handyDart. Move Access Transit to their administration duties. That's what they should be doing. Remove the contractor. The unions put together a business plan with a management structure and everything else. You can have an advisory committee with stakeholders on that board. Now it's TransLink and handyDart. Do you have problems? We can help you solve them. What that's going to create, if you bring it in-house, you can put that money back into the service. The other problem you have with the contractor, you're giving them 2.9% per year. That's $1 million a year for nothing. Do we just bail that to Texas? What's that for? This is taxpayers' money. We're talking millions of dollars. Just think of how you can expand the service. Nobody's going to wait anymore. The reason I know about this is because I pick these people up every day. I see the pain and the hurt they go through. I see the employees, the pain, they have to deal with this. You people have to understand this. This is a real issue. It's going to get bigger. It's not going to go away. Nothing's going to go away at all. You put that money back into the service, bring it in-house, make it a wholly owned subsidiary of TransLink. That's what you need to do. What that's going to do is create transparency, and it's going to increase the public trust. And I can prove everything with the FOI. You all know that. So, anyway, thank you for your time.
Danielle White. Anyone know if she's here or en route? Patrick Maxey.
My name's Patrick Maxey. I've been a retired teacher for 10 years. I've raised 7 kids, 6 grandchildren. I've worked with special needs students at Templeton High School. I was the department head at Templeton High School, so I know lots about special needs and individuals with handicaps. handyDart has given me a rich, full life after severe arthritis put me in a power chair 5 years ago, and I thank you for it. Okay, I've got nothing. It's given me a new life. Is all I can say. I use handyDart daily to and from all medical appointments, physiotherapy, exercise programs, both within the city of Port Coquitlam, but in other communities: Burnaby, Coquitlam, Port Moody, Maple Ridge, New Westminster, Vancouver, and Richmond. Now, I don't want to. I've got hours and hours here of things I'd like to say, but I want to get to my main topic. My main topic is the substitution of taxi rides for handyDart rides. I'd like to read the experience of one handyDart customer who was in a taxi. She gave me this information. It's in small print, but I would like to read it in full so all the concerns that she has in here are concerns that I had and I have in my presentation as well. So there may be a little bit of repetition. Okay, so this is happened in last August. And I'm just going to read what she wrote here. It's in her language, so hopefully you'll be okay with it. I was waiting for a handyDart to pick me up at the UBC Dental Clinic. A handyDart arrived. The driver dropped off a passenger, so I asked if he was picking me up. He said no, the bus was empty. Small thing, this happens frequently with handyDart riders, where we are supposed to be picked up, a handyDart will come by, drop somebody else off, and then take off, and you're still waiting. Okay. He said no, the bus was empty. A taxi came. The driver sat in the cab for a few minutes. He comes into the building, saying something to me, but I didn't understand because it was in his language. Then I realized he was talking to his earpiece. Then he says, "Port Moody" to me, still talking in his earpiece. He buckled my right front wheel only, no seat belt either, and still talking on his earpiece. The radio was very loud in his language. I tried to talk to him, but he was still arguing and yelling on his cell. About 15 minutes, he made a sharp turn that myself in the power chair moved violently. I was scared. I was so scared that my bladder leaked. Embarrassed, I tried to get his attention to no avail. My blood gauze that was in my mouth because I had had a tooth extracted started dripping down my chest onto my scarf and jacket because I had clenched my teeth so hard in the turn. He answered 4 more calls during the trip and never stopped. I tried to get his attention, nothing. My jaw was still sore, especially where my tooth had been extracted. So there she is, blood dripping from her mouth, sitting in her pee in a taxi. This would never happen on a handyDart. I want you to know right now, if I have to go to the bathroom, they will stop that handyDart and let me out and help me into a place to go to the bathroom. I wouldn't be left in the back of a taxi hoping they would hear me. Anyways, finally I got home. I told him that he was driving unsafe and my chair wasn't tied down properly and was moving dangerously. Also, no seatbelt. He said my chair doesn't have hooks for it. I also commented that he was arguing very loud and talking into his earpiece the whole time with the music blaring. Very unprofessional. His excuse was, I was talking to my wife, then he didn't open the door to let me out or go to the gate to let me into my apartment. Of all the bad experiences with the taxi drivers, this was the worst. Now, I've had many similar taxi experiences. I've never been belted in a taxi. They've never put a strap on me in a taxi. Sometimes my power chair is not secured, both front and back, and moves around in the back of the taxi. I have to hold on to both sides of the taxi to stay stable in the taxi. I end up, because of my arthritis, straining my joints. I feel like I've been wrestling with somebody when I get out of the taxi. Never has a taxi driver accompanied me to the door of any facility or of my home. One of my worst experiences was when the taxi driver pushed my chair unnecessarily, since it's a power chair, up the taxi ramp, hoping to speed up my loading, and I hit my head on the top of the door frame. I ended up with a lump on the top of my head before I could go into the swimming class that I was supposed to take. Several times I've been left in the back of a taxi for many minutes while the taxi driver is talking on his phone. handyDarts never do that. handyDart drivers never do this kind of stuff. Frequently the taxi drivers will take the longest route to and from places because they make more money. One of the most disgusting experiences I have had was when I realized that the black balls rolling around on the floor around my power chair wheels were loose rodent poops. So this is in a taxi. You don't get this with a handyDart. Taxi drivers do not have the patience, the skill, the incentive, the motivation, or the work stability to substitute for a trained handyDart driver. It's that simple. You people have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to train these handyDart drivers, to give them refresher courses. They know everything. This is a skilled resource for you. Don't throw it away to some taxi companies that don't really care about us. They look at and treat us like second-class citizens when we're in a taxi. In conclusion, handyDart developed and trained an outstanding group of handyDart drivers having special needs. Because I'm a special needs teacher and have that background, I can see how they interact with the populations that these drivers are dealing with. You have adult handicapped special needs adults that are in their 30s and 40s going to different schools, different workstations. You have a whole bunch of seniors using the service. Most of them are single older women. There are very few men that get on this unless they're in a chair like myself. And if they are men, for the most part, they're being directed on by their wives because they've got dementia or there's some other problem like that. So this service really is a female service. It's a service that helps senior females. I hate to say that, I don't want to get into trouble, but it's 70% of the ones, 70% of the people that I see on the handyDart 7080 are older women. Okay. TransLink drivers are a rare breed, a highly skilled and trained group of people who consistently exhibit a thoughtful, caring, kindly demeanor in a varied and sometimes challenging group of handicapped individuals and just to go through what they go through. They get out of their buses to help us from our homes. They go to our doors and knock. They hold the doors open. Then they hold our hands to steady us, watching the ground as we move our canes and our walkers and our scooters and our power chairs down the walkways. They help us into the bus. They pull down the steps to let us into the bus. They help us get into our seats. They pull down the seat belts and make sure we're secured. They lower the lifts for our chairs and scooters and walkers, and they monitor us while the lift loads us back into the bus. The drivers don't rush us. They talk reassuringly. They lock the chairs and the scooters into place, securing all 4 wheels, and then they put a belt across your chest so you're not going to move. In fact, one of the problems I brought up several times is the bus tips over and I'm in there and it's a pond. I keep thinking I'm drowned in the pond because I get out of this thing to be able to do that. Anyways, that was just my own little fear. Anyway, the process really takes about 10 minutes. Taxi drivers, they don't do this. They don't care because we are just seen as a cheap fare who can't complain. We truly are made to feel like second-class citizens in taxis. So in conclusion, you should cherish our drivers who have become our friends and allies and know that despite the criticisms leveled at handyDart, one thing you got right are your handyDart drivers. Okay, and don't fritter away that resource. Now, I've been asked to get one more quote here. The quote is from, "In the new year, I intend to reach out even more frankly. I hope we get more comments and more understanding and listen to what they are saying and figure out how to adjust the system to more adequately and accurately and humanely meet their needs." Anyone recognize this? This is from Barry Forbes, the outgoing TransLink chair, December 9, 2015. So there is an opening. There is an opening. Anyways, you got your mandate. I agree with everything else the speaker says, and I just want to tell you that the handyDart drivers are a resource, and not to fritter them away, not to treat them badly, give them a raise.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Hello, Patrick.
Tim Lewis.
Good afternoon. It's a beautiful day out there. I hear a rumor your CEO is delivering great weather, and thank you very much to your new CEO. I want to start off on a positive note as a segue into 3 very quick recommendations. We were, a number of us, as scheduled speaker today at 11 a.m., about 10 days ago, the speakers were moved to 9 a.m. That would have been a bit of a problem for folks taking handiwork out in our municipalities. Would have meant leaving our homes at about 7 a.m. For folks that are a bit slower getting up in the morning, that might have meant starting to get up at about 5 a.m. For folks that need a helper to come into their home, the helper would have to left his home before public transit even starts operating in the morning. I had a very quick, very productive, very positive chat with one of your great employees, Sarah. I apologize, I don't remember her last name. She didn't offer to do what she couldn't guarantee, but did say she'd get back to me, which she did. 90 minutes later, problem solved, back to 11 a.m. I would like to use that as a segue. Let's move away from problem identifying to problem solving. Now, we at these directors, you raise service levels for handywork. But if that's our request, period, we're not being very helpful to you. Because your hands are tied. Your funding envelope is limited. Your funding sources are finite. You've gone to a referendum, and you weren't able to get the support you needed for another funding source. If we just ask you to increase our funding, and you do that at the expense of the other members of the TransLink family, crowding those out, Coast Mountain, Seabus, etc., were not being very helpful. So we believe that we have a solution today that at the very least is worth you wearing your due diligence hat or pursuing. And that's bringing it in-house. You're spending right now tens of millions of dollars a year on a private, for-profit, American corporation. We would all agree without access to their books that they're making a profit. That's what a private corporation does. Maybe nothing wrong with that. But the fact of the matter is, to make that profit they're delivering it, and it costs less than what you're paying them. If you delivered handyDart, same way you deliver public transit, through a wholly owned subsidiary, Coast Mountain for public transit. If you delivered it at the same cost that the current operator is delivering it at, and then you'd have a profit. You could use that profit to raise service levels at no cost to the taxpayer. Now, it would not be realistic for us to say, take our word for it, your wholly owned subsidiary would deliver it at a cost that would leave over a profit. That would be foolish. So here's our recommendation to you today. And we hope today you'll pass a motion regarding this recommendation. If you were to conduct a public sector comparator, the public sector comparator would indicate whether or not our recommendation is feasible and realistic. So we're hoping today, not that you would necessarily pass a motion to conduct a public sector comparator, but at the very least you would pass a motion to ask staff to report back ABC, the cost of a public sector comparator, a timeline for a public sector comparator, and the pros and cons of doing a public sector comparator. With a short time frame, a month. A month from now, you can make an informed decision. Yes, you'll do a public sector comparator, or no, you won't. Second recommendation, and I don't see any clock, so I'm not sure how much of my 5 minutes I got left. I'll try to be quick. Okay, I'll be very fast. Even if the public sector comparator recommends bringing it in-house, you would not know until you do that whether or not everything would work out well. So, I would suggest that you still consider issuing an RFP. Create your own wholly owned subsidiary, and it would submit a bid to your procurement department. Build a Chinese wall between the wholly owned subsidiary and the procurement department. Your wholly owned subsidiary would either win the bid on its merits, or it wouldn't. The very worst might happen, MBT might get it again, but at a lower cost, because it would know if it's competing against your wholly owned subsidiary. Third and final recommendation. You have a great RFP. I've seen it. It has literally dozens of criteria, and each criteria is given a certain weight. One of the criteria that the RFP does not include is meaningful input feedback from workers, employees, and users. Why not ask your procurement department to add one element to the RFP so that anybody that bids has to indicate in that bid how they will create meaningful input from workers and users. You know, the car industry in the States set aside a certain number of board positions for the workers. If GM can do that, then so can a handyDart operator. I want to thank you very much for your time. I hope the meeting wraps up quick and you get up that sunshine that your CEO apparently is doing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on
panelist is Isabel Kolick.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As stated, my name is Isabel Kolick. I'm the Executive Director of the Heights Merchants Association, a business improvement area in Burnaby on Hastings Street between Calgary and Gamma Avenue. By way of introduction, here's some information about our district. We're a designated urban village, a main street style shopping area with almost 350 businesses, similar in number to some of our region's larger shopping malls. Our businesses generate at least $127 million per year for our local economy and create more than 2,000 local full-time and part-time jobs in a wide pay range. 60% of our customers come to us for short shopping trips such as groceries and daily services, requiring quickly and easily accessed parking. Today I want to talk to you about the HOV lane that runs through this community shopping district. Those who commute along Hastings Street see the HOV lane as a benign transportation policy that helps commuters. However, since the lane opened in 1996, it's had a negative impact on our community while having questionable benefits or even questionable necessity. We at the HMA believe that HOV lanes belong on a freeway, or at the very least in a non-commercial traffic corridor that are not dependent on healthy, pleasant, and safe pedestrian environment. We argue that Hastings Street as a whole does not even need an HOV lane, particularly with the Evergreen line being close to completion and traffic volume on Hastings having significantly declined. Our merchants are concerned about loss of business and the loss of up to 53% of prime Hastings Street parking, in particular during what used to be their peak business hours of the day, that is, the commute home time. And Heights residents too wish to see pedestrian friendliness issues addressed. In addition to taking away half of our Hastings Street parking, a moving lane of traffic next to the curb also creates a lot of other problems. High noise levels equivalent to factory machinery levels, exhaust pollution next to pedestrians, debris, and on rainy days, water spraying from the curb onto the sidewalk. The biggest problem is of danger from rapidly moving vehicles right next to where people walk. Times are changing. The pedestrian is being prioritized. We believe that TransLink's board of directors, like more and more members of the public, wish to encourage people to travel lesser distances by shopping closer to home and to help our region's neighborhood districts be more pedestrian friendly. This in turn would help those businesses prosper and create more local jobs, which in turn would reduce regional commuting. Finally, we know that TransLink wants to encourage more people to use public transit like Evergreen Line, not their cars, for regional commutes. The HOV lane also has far fewer legitimate users than one might think. Up to 38% of HOV lane users are cheaters, using the HOV lane with only one person in the car. Based on extensive counts, the number of vehicles in the HOV lane range from 294 to 682 vehicles per HOV period. However, excluding the cheaters, the numbers are much lower than that. Another important factor for our request at this time is that traffic pressure on Hastings Street has declined a lot since the HOV lane was first put in place, by as much as 25%. In the 1990s, the vehicle count was closer to 44,000 vehicles a day. Last year, in 2015, vehicle counts ranged between 25,000 and 34,000 vehicles per day. This is significantly less than 1996 traffic volume. We believe some of the reasons for this include the West Coast Express, the Millennium Line, and Highway 1 expansion. The Evergreen Line is projected to take 40,000 cars off the road in the Tri-Cities area. So with the Evergreen Line running, pressure on Hastings will ease even more. So this is an excellent time to make changes on Hastings Street. If we time it with the Evergreen Line opening, there could be potentially very minimal impact on private vehicle drivers and public transit users. And just like TransLink, the HMA does want to protect public transit on Hastings Street, and we certainly want to protect our neighborhood resident side streets from rat runners, and that's why we're proposing making changes that are timed with Evergreen Line opening. The HMA, the Heights Merchants Association, doesn't want a moving lane of traffic next to our curb and sidewalk any longer. We want our peak business prime parking back and pedestrian-friendly policies in place. And we respectfully ask TransLink to support us in achieving this vision. The BC Ministry of Transportation informed the HMA that the City of Burnaby is the one that has jurisdiction over Hastings Street, and the city has indicated to us that they support in principle the exploration of alternative approaches. But even so, we do need TransLink's cooperation and blessing to move ahead in a new direction. A good start would be to initiate a review of the situation and consider seriously our request today. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Karjit.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Harjeet, and I am the Director for Human Resources at Ontario. I am here to appeal to the board for the transit situation that we have in the Fraser Port. For those who do not know what I'm talking about, this is Westminster Highway between Nelson and Number 7 Road. The area has grown tremendously over the last 15 years, and there's been various businesses that have opened operations, but yet our transit to that area is very minimal and is causing us concern because we are having difficulty in going. We have people who refuse to work there because of the transit system. I am not here to ask for additional services. What I've been trying to work with TransLink is to enhance existing services that are in that area. To start with, the C98 provides transit from 22nd SkyTrain station to this area. However, it only works during peak time. I have asked for two things. One is, first of all, for that transit system to go west of Number 8 Road. And after 10 years, TransLink finally told me last year, yes, it's doable without adding resources, and it can be done. However, till today, that has not happened. Secondly, I'm asking for the C98 to be a regular service, not just peak time. This will allow more people into the businesses, will allow us to hire people. And finally, on that service is also do we have a weekend service as well. We do operate 124 hours in the park facilities. The second service I've been asking TransLink to revisit is 410. The 410 presently passes on Westminster Highway, but it only drops and picks up people during peak time. Of the peak time, the bus travels on the East-West Connector. That made sense 15 years ago when there were no businesses on Westminster Highway. It does not make sense anymore. I have asked for that service to be traveling on Westminster Highway as a regular service. And I do not think that's unreasonable to us because it makes sense. Whatever incremental cost that TransLink would incur will be offset by the ridership. So that's the two areas that I'm asking. We are not asking for any additional service, but just to tweak the existing services that are in there to allow us to operate our businesses. In 2012, we had the numbers, we were hiring about 32,000 people in that area, and that number has increased now. There's huge businesses in that area, but yet TransLink has not provided us with the services to allow us to employ people. So to recap my request, I am asking TransLink and this board to revisit the services that are presently being provided in that area, the C98 and 410, to have it serviced properly and to also provide weekend service in that area as well. I do not think it's unreasonable. I think it can be done if somebody takes the leadership on it and make it happen. That's my request to this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela. Even though Angela Fink is here on way. Let's move to Tyler Felville.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Tyler Feldell. I'm the Vice President of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 7024, representing the workers of handyDart. I've been a driver myself for over 25 years, and I started with Pacific Transit, which was the operator for Vancouver. And Pacific Transit was a non-profit society with a board elected from the passengers. Their current contractor, MBT Canadian Bus, their contract expires at the end of 2016, and I'm here to implore you to end the contracting out of this service and bring it in-house as a permanent subsidiary of TransLink, similar to Coast Mountain but separate and specializing in transit for people with disabilities. Your new CEO has recognized that TransLink needs to build trust with the public. This requires communication, accountability, and transparency. Contracting out provides none of these. handyDart passengers wishing to talk about their problems are referred back to the contractor. As the chain goes now, the passenger speaks through the employees to the contractor, who may or may not listen, who is overseen by Coast Mountain, who reports to the staff at Access Transit, who reports to whom. Bringing the service in-house would eliminate multiple levels of bureaucracy and redundancy in the management. There's no accountability to the public, as the contractor is worried only about their client, TransLink, and their profit. There's no transparency, as the private company is not obliged to disclose their profits publicly. It's outrageous that an unknown amount of tax dollars is being sent out of the country when it could be put back into providing more service for our citizens with disabilities. Putting out a request for proposals from other contractors will only propagate a race to the bottom. At least we already have a collective agreement and a working relationship with MVT. Although the service relies completely on a well-trained and experienced workforce, a new contractor is not required to hire the existing employees or match the current wages, benefits, and pension. Trying to negotiate with a new for-profit contractor with a predetermined budget can lead to labor unrest and even a strike if the company tries to maximize its profits by taking away the workers' benefits or pension. The very least you can do is give successorship rights back to the workers. But bringing the employees in-house would be an opportunity to greatly improve labor relations, communication, and morale. Trying to replace handyDart service with taxis is another failed experiment. The taxi industry is also driven by profit and is simply inadequate to fill the growing demand. There are many times when taxis are not available, and there's a very high turnover of drivers. Compared to handyDart, there are many times complaints about poorly trained cab drivers, most of them safety related, and many others about rudeness. We often hear stories from our passengers about cabbies who won't tie down the wheelchairs properly, if at all, or offer a seat belt, or who drop off blind clients or people with Alzheimer's without giving them assistance to the door, or who make elderly people load their own walkers into the trunk and then complain when they don't get a tip. It's only a matter of time before there's a very serious incident. It's time for TransLink to stop looking for scapegoats and middlemen and take responsibility for providing the service the public needs. Our union has developed a business plan for bringing handyDart in-house, and we will be happy to work with TransLink management in making it a reality. Our members are dedicated, know our jobs well, and take pride in the care and attention we give to our passengers. We enjoy the feeling that we're helping people. TransLink owns the buses and infrastructure. All you need to do is hire a few competent managers to run it. Transit for people with disabilities is not a charity, it's a human right. TransLink has a duty to accommodate these citizens, and their accommodation should be equal in the resulting service. Our passengers are not statistics, they're not cattle, they're not parcels to be delivered, or aliens from another planet. They do not deserve to be trapped in their homes or a care facility. They're someone's father or mother, sister, brother, or child. They are seniors who worked hard to build our society, or young people who have much to contribute if they can get some transportation to work or school. One day, they could be any of us or our family members. As Mr. Lewis pointed out, meaningful input from passengers and from workers is the key to a successful operation. From things such as bus design, which aren't suitable for the work. And another example I've heard is many passengers complaining about the inaccessibility of campus cards if they have limited use of their arms or other disabilities preventing them. So in conclusion, I think the time is here to bring fairness and respect to these workers and to these passengers and bring the handyDart service in-house. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At the outset of this part of the meeting, I indicated that there were a number of people who had applied to present as delegations that we said would need to go on standby. I don't know if any of them are here, but there were a few people who requested time to give a presentation today, and they didn't show up. So I'm going to read a list and ask if any of these people are here. First of all, Albert Melenius. Would you like to make a presentation? And for this part of the meeting, I've been trying to manage the time so that everyone gets a chance to speak. I'm going to be a little bit more strict on it now, so please be as brief and to the point as you can be.
I have already spoken to you. The last time I spoke to you as a transit driver and a transit rider. I was also a handyDart negotiator. I'm the guy who negotiated for 23 years without a strike. We didn't cause that strike. I want to make this really short. Whatever you do with handyDart, you need to make it more stable. handyDart riders need stability to be able to plan their lives. A few are quite vulnerable, but they all have obstacles to overcome if they want full participation. Another point, if you can afford subway SkyTrain, you can afford handyDart. Many of my passengers can't use subway or SkyTrain if they can't get a handyDart to get there. I'm kind of nervous today, my voice is cracking. Many of my passengers can't even use subway or SkyTrain or regular transit. They rely entirely upon me. Another disruption at this point would be a major tragedy. So I'm going to go back to my first point. Whatever you do with handyDart, you need to make it more stable. I've got a few more things I could say, but I'm going to put that in a letter form. I'll give it to you later.
I appreciate that, and you will be giving someone a little bit more time if you do it in writing, and we will take everything you say into account, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll send you a letter.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Beth McKellar. Beth, to us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I welcome Mr. Desmond. On December 9, 2015, I came over here to leave our SOS, complete for the right stuff. We just handyDart for our renal dialysis and DC transplant group. I know that we're pressed for time, so I cut my few words short. I just wanted you to allow me to give you an update. On the front, what I can tell you is not much has been done, although I could say that we had one meeting at VGH where some of your representatives came. However, little or no change has happened since then. I would like you to know that we don't have all the energy to spend. We're not as able-bodied as many of you. We need our rights, timely rights, especially for our couple and pickup for our essential dialysis and follow medical exams. I know Ms. McLean mentioned something about something internal having been done. But to this day, as I said, the results of the meeting that we have instead of hope is more distrust and more dismay. If this is your way of gaining confidence and trust from the public, from your customers, tell us that. If it's not happening, fix it, please. Like I said in my closing statement before, we trust you all. We have respect for your responsibilities and duties that you hold, especially your officers. Please show us. The next time I will come here, it's not a word of mercy or not a word of blame, but take us as citizens of this province, of this country, that needs your help. This transportation is essential to us. handyDart is gone out of control. It's time to bring it home. Take it in-house. Fix it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming here and speaking to us again. Pam, Miller, you have something to say?
handyDart employee. I work in the nonprofit section and for MBT. When we were nonprofit, there was no problems. Staff was happy, clients were happy. If there was a complaint, we looked out, it was looked after. Now when there's a complaint, nobody cares. Try getting through your customer service, we'll call you back in 48 hours. You know, it's just a nightmare. Now, the taxis, when I worked for handyDart, MET, I saw the taxi problems. I heard about them. And I brought it to management and I said, can't we get someone to go to each taxi company and inspect all the wheelchair taxis? Oh, no, we could never do that, never do that. Isn't that a safety concern? No, we can't do that. Then an old lady would be sent a taxi without notice because all of a sudden we couldn't pick her up, so we're sending a taxi. She doesn't know a taxi's coming, so she's standing in the lobby of a medical building. Taxi pulls up, he waits 2 seconds, takes off, charges us. Then the lady calls half an hour later, where's my ride? Well, we sent a taxi. Oh, I saw a taxi, but I didn't know it was for me. So we call the taxi back, charges us again. And I said, can't we get some signs that say handyDart on them that you can even hold up so people know that that's for them? Oh, no, we could never do that. And it was just constant, danger with the wheelchair taxis. And nobody seemed to care to improve it. The drivers were rude, even calling the taxis the whole time. Dispatch should be calling taxi, being put on hold. Drivers would be calling in, trying to get hold of dispatch. They can't get through because they're on hold with the taxis. It really needs to be fixed. And there were some taxi drivers that would take the handyDart passes and said, no, you have to pay us directly. And that really made me mad. And when I mentioned it to management, oh, well, we don't want to make any waves because they might not pick up our clients. And if I was on duty when that happened, I'd blow them up and say, you will take that money back to her right now and give it back to her. And they would, but the office didn't really care. And it was really hard dealing with the taxis, really hard.
Thank you very much. That concludes all the delegations. I think this case is going to take a break. We're going to adjourn the public meeting, so if I have a motion to adjourn, second or any discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. So this meeting is